Dragonsong, the enduring power of sibling bonds. The air hung thick with the smell of smoke and fear. One moment, the village of Oakhaven was bathed in the golden light of a late afternoon sun, the laughter of children echoing between the timber-framed houses. The next, a deafening roar shattered the tranquility, a monstrous shadow blotting out the sun. It was a dragon, scales the color of a stormy sea, wings spanning the width of the village square. Fire erupted from its nostrils, a searing inferno that licked at the thatched roofs and wooden walls. Alara, 16 and already burdened with a maturity beyond her years, watched in horror as the dragon descended, its claws ripping through the air, scattering villagers like scattered leaves in a hurricane. She clutched her younger brother, Finn, 14 and usually a whirlwind of playful energy, now frozen in silent terror. The idyllic life they knew, filled with the warmth of their parents' love and the comforting rhythm of village life, was being consumed in a maelstrom of fire and chaos. The screams of the villagers were a cacophony, a symphony of fear and pain that pierced Alara's ears. She shielded Finn, her small body a frail barrier against the raging inferno. She saw Mrs. Gable, the baker, her flour-dusted apron ablaze, desperately trying to shield her youngest child. Old Man Hemlock, the village blacksmith, his usually strong frame crumpled beneath the weight of a collapsing building. Everywhere she looked, there was chaos, destruction, and the chilling reality of death. The earth trembled beneath the dragon's massive weight. Buildings splintered, their wooden frames succumbing to the intense heat. The stench of burning wood and flesh filled the air, a stench that would forever be etched in Alara's memory. She squeezed Finn's hand tighter, the rough texture of his skin against hers offering a fragile anchor in the swirling tempest of destruction. Through a gap in the inferno, she saw her parents, their faces contorted in a mixture of fear and pain. Their cries were swallowed by the dragon's roar, lost in the chaotic symphony of destruction. Alara felt a searing pain, a pain that had nothing to do with the fire, a pain that ripped through her very soul. She saw her father, strong and ever-protective, collapse, his body engulfed in flames. Her mother, her gentle hand outstretched as if to reach for her, was consumed by the dragon's fiery breath. The dragon, its work seemingly done, rose into the air, its silhouette a dark omen against the fiery backdrop of their burning village. It disappeared into the misty mountains, leaving behind a scene of utter devastation. Silence descended, a heavy, suffocating blanket that settled over the ravaged village. The only sounds were the crackling of flames, the occasional groan of collapsing structures, and the soft, ragged sobs of the survivors. Alara and Finn, clinging to each other amidst the rubble, were covered in soot and tears. Their clothes were torn, their faces streaked with grime, their eyes hollow with grief. The world, as they knew it, had been irrevocably shattered. The idyllic peace of their village had been replaced by a desolate wasteland, a testament to the dragon's brutal fury. But even in the depths of their despair, a flicker of something else ignited within them. A burning ember of rage, a fierce determination that refused to be extinguished. Finn, his face stained with soot and tears, looked up at Alara, his eyes blazing with a fire that mirrored the destruction around them. "We'll make it pay," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the crackling flames. Alara, her own grief as immense as the ruins surrounding them, nodded. The vow was unspoken, yet understood. The image of their parents' lifeless forms, consumed by the dragon's fiery breath, fueled their resolve. Revenge would be theirs. They would hunt down the creature responsible for this unspeakable tragedy and make it pay for what it had done. Their hands, black with soot, clasped together, a promise forged in the ashes of their shattered lives. They would find the dragon and make it pay for their loss. Their quest for vengeance had begun. The destruction was everywhere. The familiar, comforting smells of baking bread and wood smoke were replaced by the acrid stench of burning wood and something else. Something Alara couldn't quite place, but which clung to the back of her throat like a bitter taste. Their home, a small cottage nestled on the edge of the village, was reduced to charred timbers and smoking rubble. The precious memories, the photographs of happier times, the small trinkets and keepsakes that held the essence of their parents' love, were lost forever in the inferno. As they moved through the wreckage, sifting through the debris, Alara's heart ached with a pain so profound it threatened to suffocate her. Each charred object, each broken piece of furniture, was a reminder of the life that was stolen from them, a cruel reminder of the irretrievable loss. Yet beneath the mountain of despair, a spark of resilience flickered. Amidst the rubble, near the remains of their hearth, Alara found something amidst the scorched earth, a small, leather-bound book, miraculously untouched by the flames. It was her father's journal, a collection of his notes on herbal remedies and the secrets of the Whispering Woods, the ancient forest that bordered their village. Within its pages, tucked away amongst the carefully pressed herbs and annotated drawings, was a folded piece of parchment, a map. The map, drawn with precise detail, depicted a winding path through the Whispering Woods, leading to a symbol Alara didn't recognize, a large, serpentine figure that seemed to guard a cave. Below the symbol, a small annotation, written in their father's familiar scrawl, read, "The Heart of the Storm." This was their path to vengeance. Finn, his eyes fixed on the map, felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. "This is it," he declared, his voice still trembling slightly, but imbued with a newfound determination. "This will lead us to it." Alara, however, felt a mix of determination and fear. The map, a beacon of hope amidst the ruins, was also a reminder of their dangerous journey ahead. The Whispering Woods were legendary, home to creatures of myth and terror. They began to plan. Their parents' knowledge of herbal remedies and survival skills, painstakingly recorded in the journal, would be their guide. They gathered what supplies they could salvage from the wreckage: a worn leather satchel, a few knives, some dried herbs their mother had carefully stored, a couple of sturdy, albeit slightly singed blankets. Their journey into the heart of the storm had begun. The map, a symbol of their shared grief and their unwavering determination, would be their compass as they navigated the treacherous path ahead. The memory of their parents' faces would fuel their quest for vengeance, and the shared burden of their loss would forge an unbreakable bond between the two siblings. The acrid smell of smoke still clung to Alara's clothes, a constant suffocating reminder of the devastation. She knelt amongst the rubble of what was once their home, her fingers tracing the outline of a charred wooden toy soldier, a relic of happier times, a stark contrast to the bleak reality surrounding her. Finn, ever restless, paced back and forth, his soot-stained face a mask of grim determination. He kicked at a broken piece of furniture, sending a cloud of dust swirling into the air. "It's gone," he muttered, his voice a low growl, more to himself than to Alara. "Everything's gone." Alara reached out, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. His impulsive energy, usually a source of both exasperation and affection, was now a manifestation of his grief, a raw, untamed force that mirrored the devastation around them. "I know, Finn," she said softly, her voice strained with emotion, "but we still have each other." The words felt hollow even to her own ears. The bond between them had always been strong, a sibling connection forged in shared laughter, whispered secrets, and countless games of hide-and-seek amongst the oak trees bordering their village. But now, this bond felt fragile, stretched taut by the unimaginable weight of their loss. It was a bond tested in the crucible of grief, a bond that would either shatter or become unbreakable. Their eyes met, and in that shared gaze, a silent understanding passed between them. The devastation wasn't just the physical destruction of their village, of their home, of their parents. It was the shattering of their world, the world that had held their childhood, their laughter, their future. And yet, amidst this devastation, a flicker of something else ignited, a shared resolve, a determination to find a way forward. They had found the book, their father's journal. The journal itself was a miraculous survivor of the inferno, its leather cover slightly singed, but its pages miraculously intact. It felt almost sacred in Alara's hands, a testament to the enduring power of written words and the legacy of their parents. The map, hidden within its pages, became their focus. It was a pathway to the heart of their grief, their fury, and their path to vengeance. The map itself was a work of art, its intricate lines drawn with meticulous precision. It depicted a path winding through the whispering woods, a labyrinthine forest shrouded in legend and myth, a place where shadows stretched long and darkness held sway. The path snaked through ancient trees, their gnarled branches reaching towards the sky like skeletal arms, and over rushing streams and deep ravines. It wasn't just a map, it was a tapestry of mystery. The serpentine figure at the end of the path, guarding what appeared to be the entrance to a cave, was both unsettling and strangely mesmerizing. It was a symbol Elara didn't recognize, but its presence felt ominous, charged with a dark energy that mirrored the dragon's terrifying power. Beneath the symbol, in their father's familiar, elegant script, was a cryptic annotation, "The Heart of the Storm." The words resonated with a deep, unsettling power. "What do you think it means?" Finn asked, his voice hushed with awe and trepidation. He traced the winding path with his finger, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. Elara studied the map, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I don't know, Finn," she admitted, "but it's our only lead. It's our only way to find it, to make it pay." The map became their shared obsession, their common ground amidst the ruins of their lives. They spent hours poring over it, deciphering its cryptic clues, their fingers tracing the winding path, their minds grappling with its mysteries. They argued, they debated, they laughed, a brittle, nervous laughter that felt like a fragile shield against the overwhelming grief. Finn, with his characteristic impulsiveness, wanted to set out immediately, to plunge headfirst into the whispering woods, to confront the dragon and exact their revenge. Elara, however, was more cautious, urging him to take their time, to prepare themselves for the dangers that lay ahead. Their contrasting approaches frequently led to humorous exchanges, brief moments of levity that provided a welcome respite from the crushing weight of their loss. "We could just leave a strongly worded note," Finn suggested one evening, as Elara painstakingly checked their meager supply of dried herbs. "You know, a strongly worded, fiery note detailing our utter disappointment with its fire-breathing behavior." He paused, considering the matter gravely, then added with a mischievous glint in his eye, "We could include a drawing of it in a humiliating pose, maybe with its tail caught in a mud puddle." Elara chuckled, a genuine, heartfelt laugh that surprised even her. "I'm sure the dragon would find that utterly devastating, Finn." She did not doubt the sincerity of the insult, but the thought of sending a strongly worded letter to a fire-breathing dragon seemed almost comically inappropriate, given their circumstances. "Let's focus on the map, please. Your artistic talents will be of far greater use later." Their preparation was meticulous. Using their father's journal as their guide, they gathered what little supplies they could salvage from the wreckage, ensuring they only took things absolutely necessary for survival. Every herb, every bandage, every sharp stone or salvaged knife carried the weight of their parents' legacy, serving as constant reminders of the life that was lost, but also of the life they were fighting to reclaim. The map, carefully stored in a waterproof pouch, felt like a talisman, their lifeline, their guide into the heart of the storm. The map, with its winding path and ominous symbol, became a focal point, a symbol of their shared journey, their shared grief, and their unwavering determination. It was a tangible representation of their quest for justice, a concrete link to the vengeance they craved. It was also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a beacon of hope amidst the ashes of their shattered lives. Their journey, fraught with danger and uncertainty, was about to begin. They had their goal, their path, and the bond forged in ashes. Their future, however uncertain, was inextricably intertwined with the secrets hidden within the heart of the whispering woods. The air hung heavy with the scent of wood smoke and damp earth, a stark contrast to the acrid smell that had clung to them for days. Elara, her face smudged with grime, meticulously sorted through a small pile of salvaged herbs. Her movements were precise, almost ritualistic, each herb carefully examined, its properties assessed with the practiced eye of someone steeped in the lore of the land. Their father, a renowned herbalist, had instilled in them a deep understanding of the natural world, a knowledge that now proved invaluable. Beside her, Finn, ever the pragmatist, sharpened a piece of flint against a smooth river stone, his brow furrowed in concentration. He tested the edge with his thumb, a small grunt escaping his lips as the flint bit into his skin, drawing a thin line of blood. He didn't flinch, merely wiped the blood away with the back of his hand, his focus unwavering. The makeshift knife, crude but functional, was a testament to his resourcefulness, a reflection of the grim determination that had settled upon him. Their parents' journal, the source of their only hope, lay open between them. Its pages, filled with their father's elegant script and detailed drawings, served as their guide, a testament to their parents' legacy. Alongside the map, it contained meticulous notes on edible plants, medicinal herbs, and practical survival techniques. Each entry was a poignant reminder of their loss, a whispered echo of the life they once knew. "This nightshade," Alara murmured, holding up a small purple berry, "will help with any cuts or infections. Father always said a little goes a long way." She carefully placed it in a small pouch woven from scavenged plant fibers, adding it to a growing collection of carefully curated supplies. Finn, meanwhile, had fashioned a makeshift bow and arrow from a length of sturdy branch and a handful of sharpened stones. He meticulously tested the tension of the bowstring, his movements fluid and practiced. "It's not much," he admitted, inspecting the weapon critically, "but it'll do for now." His tone betrayed a hint of pride amidst his usual grim determination. The bow, a rudimentary weapon crafted from the remnants of their destroyed world, served as a potent symbol of their resilience and their unwavering resolve. Their preparations were a mixture of somber efficiency and occasional flashes of dark humor, a coping mechanism against the crushing weight of their grief. They salvaged what they could from the ruins of their home, each item a painful reminder of their loss, yet also a building block for their future. They filled a sturdy leather satchel with dried herbs, meticulously cleaned and packed. The pouch would be their pharmacy, offering a lifeline should sickness or injury strike. Each action, from meticulously cleaning a wound to carefully rationing their limited food supply, reflected the practical knowledge their father had imparted to them, a gift that now sustained them in their darkest hour. Alara carefully wrapped a small bag of dried berries and nuts, her movements slow and deliberate. "We need to ration these carefully," she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "We don't know how long the journey will take." The scarcity of their provisions was a stark reminder of the challenges ahead, a constant pressure that weighed heavily on their hearts. The lack of abundance didn't dampen their spirits. They had to make do with what they had, and their resolve was firm. Their makeshift weapons were another testament to their resourcefulness. Alara crafted a sturdy walking stick from a branch, sharpening one end into a point that could serve as both a weapon and a tool. Finn, using his father's old smithing tools, fashioned a small knife from a broken piece of metal, a crude but functional weapon that reflected his ever-present grim determination. It was a weapon honed not just from metal, but from the strength forged in their shared grief. They worked silently for hours, their movements coordinated through a deep understanding born of years of shared experience. The meticulous care they took with their preparations reflected their deep-seated understanding of the dangers that lay ahead, a testament to their father's wisdom and their own remarkable resilience. The quiet efficiency of their movements spoke volumes. Their survival depended on their ability to adapt, to improvise, to rely on each other. As dusk settled, casting long shadows across the ravaged landscape, they paused their work. The remnants of their home stood as a silent testament to their loss, yet amid the rubble, the flicker of a shared purpose shone brightly. They had packed their bags, a meager collection of necessities that represented their hope. The map, rolled tight in its waterproof pouch, felt heavy in Alara's hand, a tangible symbol of their impending journey, their quest for justice, and their shared sorrow. Their belongings were minimal: rations of dried food, herbs, a few sharp stones, the makeshift weapons, and their father's journal. Yet, it was enough. It was everything. Their farewell to their ruined home was silent. No words were needed to express the sorrow that clung to them like the lingering wood smoke. The devastation was a palpable presence, a constant reminder of their loss. Yet, in the shared glance they exchanged, a silent agreement passed between them. They would face this together. The Whispering Woods waited. Their quest for vengeance, and perhaps something more, had begun. The path before them was unknown, filled with peril, but they were ready. They had each other, the memory of their parents, and the unwavering resolve born from grief and loss. The ember of their loss had ignited a flame of determination, guiding them towards a future that remained, for now, shrouded in mystery. But they were ready to face it, together. Their journey, a testament to their resilience and their unwavering bond, had begun. The heart of the storm awaited. The first step into the Whispering Woods felt like stepping into another world. The air, once heavy with the scent of wood smoke and damp earth, now held a deeper, more primal aroma, a blend of decaying leaves, rich soil, and something indefinably ancient, something that prickled the skin and stirred a primal unease. Towering trees, their ancient branches gnarled and twisted like arthritic fingers, clawed at the sky, their leaves rustling with 1,000 unseen whispers. The sunlight, filtered through the dense canopy, cast the forest floor in a perpetual twilight, creating an atmosphere of hushed expectancy. The path, if it could even be called that, was barely discernible, a faint trace winding between the colossal tree trunks. Twisted roots, like the skeletal remains of some forgotten giants, snaked across their path, demanding careful footwork. Alara, ever vigilant, led the way, her walking stick probing the ground ahead, testing the solidity of each step. Finn, close behind, his makeshift knife held loosely in his hand, kept a watchful eye on their surroundings. The silence, broken only by the rustling leaves and the occasional snap of a twig, was a palpable presence, heavier than any physical burden. It was a silence that pressed in on them, a suffocating blanket woven from shadows and secrets. Their initial progress was slow, painstaking. The terrain was treacherous, a treacherous tapestry of uneven ground, hidden pitfalls, and dense undergrowth that snagged at their clothes. They navigated around fallen logs, their surfaces slick with moss and decay, and hopped over gurgling streams, the water icy cold against their bare ankles. Yet, with each obstacle overcome, a quiet sense of accomplishment settled upon them, a small victory in the face of their immense loss. Their collaboration, born of necessity, was seamless, a silent symphony of movement and understanding. Alara, with her keen perception of the natural world, identified safe passages and potential hazards. Finn, with his practical skills and unwavering determination, cleared their path, his makeshift knife proving surprisingly effective against the tangled undergrowth. Their first encounter with wildlife was a small family of deer, their eyes wide and wary as they watched the siblings pass. The animals were as hesitant as Alara and Finn felt. Alara, remembering her father's teachings, remained motionless, allowing the deer to pass peacefully. The creature's delicate grace was a brief respite from the grim reality of their situation. The beauty of nature, even in this foreboding forest, served as a reminder of the world's enduring capacity for wonder. They encountered a family of badgers later that day, much less graceful and far more assertive in their approach. The animals, initially curious, quickly became defensive when Finn inadvertently stumbled too close to their burrow. The badger's sharp claws and ferocious snarls created a tense moment. Finn, however, quickly remembered his father's advice about deterrence and reacted instantly. He held up a handful of the pungent nightshade berries Alara had collected, their strong odor immediately causing the badgers to retreat into their burrow, leaving Alara and Finn unscathed. The incident served as a potent reminder of the dangers lurking within the woods, but also of their growing resourcefulness and their ability to adapt. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched and distorted the already unsettling landscape, they found a small, sheltered clearing. It was barely big enough for a fire, but it offered a measure of protection from the elements and a place to rest. Finn expertly gathered dry twigs and leaves, his movements precise and confident. He carefully built a small fire, the flames dancing and flickering in the deepening twilight, offering a fragile but reassuring warmth against the encroaching cold. The fire became their beacon in the darkness. Around the small fire, as the flames crackled and popped, the weight of their grief seemed to lift, if only slightly. The shared task of preparing their meager meal, a handful of dried berries and nuts, strengthened their bond. They talked little, their words sparse but filled with unspoken understanding. The silence was no longer suffocating, but rather a companionable presence, the shared space filled with a quiet strength. The night deepened, the forest growing darker, but their determination remained steadfast. The stars emerged, tiny pinpricks of light in the vast expanse of the night sky, creating a sense of awe and wonder in the midst of their journey. Their whispered hopes and anxieties were exchanged under the silent gaze of the stars. The next day, their journey continued, their pace now steadier, their movements more confident. The forest, though still foreboding, felt less hostile. They were learning to read its rhythms, to anticipate its challenges. They moved as one, their bodies working in unison, their senses alert and watchful. Their steps became quieter, smoother. They passed a rushing river, its waters a mesmerizing swirl of silver and shadow. The river was too wide and too swift to cross directly. However, using their combined knowledge of the landscape, they found a narrow, shallower part of the riverbank. They carefully negotiated the crossing, Alara testing the depth of the water with her stick, while Finn provided support and balance. They made it to the other side unscathed, their hearts filled with the thrill of another challenge overcome. Along the way, they encountered more challenges, navigating steep ravines, evading thorny bushes, and even a sudden downpour that drenched them to the bone. But through it all, they persevered, their initial grief slowly giving way to a quiet determination. Their collaboration deepened, their bond strengthened by their shared peril and resilience. They learned to rely on each other implicitly, trusting their instincts and judgments without question. The Whispering Woods, initially a source of fear and unease, began to reveal a different aspect of itself, a raw, untamed beauty, a silent strength that mirrored their own. The journey was testing their limits, but with each challenge, they emerged stronger, their spirit unbroken. The ember of their loss had indeed ignited a flame of resilience, of hope, of unwavering determination. Their journey had only just begun, but they were facing it together, their bond a shield against the storms that awaited them. They were walking a path forged in sorrow, but illuminated by the unwavering light of their shared purpose. The heart of the storm was still a long way off, but they were prepared to face it together. The sun, a pale disk behind a veil of mist, cast long, distorted shadows as Alara and Finn rounded a bend in the path. The air, already thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, took on a new, sharper tang, something sweet, something oddly fruity. Before they could identify the source, a flurry of movement erupted from the undergrowth. A chorus of giggling, high-pitched voices filled the air, followed by a shower of brightly colored berries and a scattering of oddly shaped pebbles. 3 small goblins, no taller than Finn's knees, tumbled out of the bushes, their ragged clothes patched with leaves and bits of brightly colored fungi. Their skin was a mottled green, their noses long and pointed, and their eyes gleamed with mischievous intelligence. One, slightly larger than the others, wore a crude crown fashioned from thorns and a particularly shiny beetle wing. They looked like a miniature chaotic army, armed with nothing but their impish grins and a seemingly endless supply of berries. Finn instinctively reached for his knife, but Alara placed a hand on his arm, a silent warning. These weren't the dangerous creatures of the legends. These were playful. Their movements were more like a coordinated dance than an attack, a whirlwind of giggling, tumbling bodies. They pelted Alara and Finn with more berries, their laughter echoing through the trees. The berries, surprisingly sweet, splattered against their clothes. Finn, momentarily stunned, let out a chuckle, the tension draining from his shoulders. Alara, ever practical, ducked and weaved, dodging the berry barrage with surprising agility. She picked up a handful of pebbles and, with a mischievous grin, hurled them back at the goblins, her aim surprisingly accurate. The goblins shrieked with delight, their game escalating. They responded with a volley of acorns, which pinged harmlessly off Finn's head. The chase was on. The siblings found themselves in a merry pursuit, the goblins darting between the trees, their laughter a constant joyous soundtrack to the chase. They scrambled over fallen logs, ducked under low-hanging branches, their movements fluid and synchronized, a testament to their growing teamwork. The goblins, surprisingly nimble, were quick, but Alara and Finn were even quicker. They used their knowledge of the forest to their advantage, utilizing the terrain to outmaneuver their tiny pursuers. They were like a pair of agile foxes, effortlessly navigating the forest's intricate maze while the goblins, though fast, were often caught off guard by unexpected obstacles. Alara's keen eye spotted a particularly precarious patch of moss-covered rocks, and she skillfully guided Finn towards it, knowing the goblins wouldn't be able to navigate it as easily. The goblins, initially amused by the chase, found themselves becoming frustrated as they failed to catch their human quarry. Their playful taunts turned into increasingly desperate squeals as Alara and Finn began to pull ahead. They were learning the goblins' tactics, anticipating their movements, and responding with equal measures of wit and agility. The game, once lighthearted, was evolving into a test of wits, a contest of speed and cunning. The chase led them through a thicket of thorny bushes, the goblins struggling to navigate the dense undergrowth. Alara and Finn, however, emerged relatively unscathed, their knowledge of the forest once again giving them the advantage. They emerged on a small, rocky outcrop overlooking a rushing stream, their pursuers momentarily stymied. From their vantage point, they could see the goblins scrambling around below, their frustration evident in their frustrated cries. Finn, catching his breath, let out a hearty laugh. "I think we've lost them," he said, wiping berry stains from his face. Alara smiled. "For now," she replied, her eyes twinkling. "But I suspect they'll be back." Their respite was short-lived. A high-pitched giggle echoed from behind a large oak tree, followed by the familiar sound of rapidly approaching footsteps. The goblins, it seemed, were not so easily deterred. This time, however, they employed a new tactic: distraction. While one goblin created a diversion by throwing more berries, the other two attempted to sneak around the siblings' position, their tiny forms blending seamlessly with the undergrowth. Alara, ever vigilant, spotted their movement. She pointed silently, then, with a series of quick, deft movements, created a makeshift trap. Using vines and branches, she created a small snare, cleverly concealing it amongst the undergrowth. As the goblins approached, their attention drawn away by Finn's feigned distraction, they stepped directly into the snare. Their giggling ceased abruptly, replaced by a series of indignant yelps as they became entangled. Finn and Alara exchanged a look, a shared moment of amusement. Their laughter echoed through the forest, a sound as lighthearted as the goblins' initial taunts. The goblins, initially furious at being trapped, were soon overcome by the sheer absurdity of the situation. Their angry yelps were interspersed with peals of laughter, the line between frustration and amusement becoming blurred. It was, after all, a game. The siblings approached cautiously, approaching the tangled goblins. They helped untangle the smaller goblins, earning a few more berries in return as a token of their grudging respect. The Goblin King, his crown askew, grumbled about the unfairness of it all, but his grumbling was laced with laughter. They had earned their respect, not through force, but through wit and ingenuity. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched and distorted the landscape, the siblings continued their journey, the memory of their playful encounter lingering in the air. The goblins had tested their resolve, but their antics had also injected a much-needed dose of lightheartedness into their journey. The laughter echoing through the forest was a testament to their ability to adapt, to find humor amidst the grief, to outsmart their adversaries without resorting to violence. Their bond, already strong, had grown even stronger, forged not just in shared sorrow, but also in shared laughter, in shared triumph over a mischievous band of forest dwellers. The whispering woods, still mysterious and unknown, was now tinged with a hint of the absurd, a gentle reminder that even in the darkest of journeys, there was always room for laughter, for resilience, and for unexpected friendship. The ember of their loss still burned, but it was now fueled by a newfound sense of hope, a quiet assurance that their journey, however challenging, would be one they would face together, one filled with shared adventures, unexpected allies, and a hearty dose of laughter. The playful chase, however, had been a prelude to a far less jovial encounter. As they rounded another bend in the path, the carefree atmosphere evaporated, replaced by a chilling silence. The woods, which had hummed with the goblins' laughter only moments before, now seemed to hold its breath. The air grew heavy, thick with an unsettling stillness that prickled Alara's skin. Ahead, a jagged opening in the undergrowth revealed not the gentle stream they'd expected, but a dark, gaping maw in the earth, like a toothless mouth waiting to swallow them whole. Before either sibling could react, a swarm of goblins emerged, far larger and more menacing than the playful trio they'd encountered earlier. These goblins were taller, their green skin rougher, their eyes burning with a cruel, calculating light. They carried crude weapons, sharpened sticks, rusty blades fashioned from scraps of metal, and what looked disturbingly like the bones of small animals. Their laughter was gone, replaced by guttural growls and harsh, barking commands in a language Alara and Finn couldn't understand, yet somehow felt deep in their bones. Overwhelmed by the sheer number of goblins, any hope of escape felt immediately lost. The siblings were surrounded, their nimble movements suddenly useless against the sheer force of numbers. A goblin, larger than the rest, stepped forward. He wore a crown fashioned not of beetle wings, but of what looked like a human skull, its empty eye sockets seeming to stare accusingly at Alara and Finn. This was no longer a game. This was a capture. They were dragged into the darkness of the Earth's maw, the rough earth scraping against their skin. The tunnel twisted and turned, a claustrophobic labyrinth that seemed to go on forever. The air grew thick with the stench of damp earth, decay, and something acrid, something faintly metallic. The goblins' growls and shouts echoed around them, a cacophony that heightened the feeling of utter helplessness. Finally, the passage opened into a cavern. The sight that greeted them was a far cry from the whimsical scenes of their previous encounter. This wasn't a playground, but a crude, squalid dwelling. The cavern was vast, but it was filled with a chaotic jumble of debris. Rough-hewn furniture, fashioned from tree trunks and animal hides, was scattered haphazardly around a central fire that cast flickering shadows on the cave walls. The air hung thick with smoke, mingled with the stench of unwashed bodies and rotting food. Goblins, dozens of them, milled about, attending to their various tasks. Some were preparing food, or what looked like food, over the fire. The sight of what appeared to be roasted rodents made Alara's stomach churn. Others sharpened their crude weapons, their movements honed from years of necessity and perhaps cruelty. Children, smaller than the goblins they had encountered earlier, played amongst the rubbish, their laughter, chillingly reminiscent of their earlier playful tormentors, echoing in the claustrophobic space. Alara and Finn were roughly shoved to the ground, the goblins circling them like vultures. The Goblin King, the one with the human skull crown, approached. His eyes narrowed in what could only be described as vicious amusement. He gestured with his bone-handled knife, and two smaller goblins bound their hands and feet with surprisingly strong vines. Their surroundings emphasized the stark contrast between their lives and those of their captors. Alara and Finn, accustomed to a life of comfort and relative privilege, found themselves thrust into a world of stark hardship and brutal reality. The goblins' existence, though crude and savage, possessed a certain resilience, a kind of grim determination that spoke to their ability to survive in a harsh environment. Their primitive society, though lacking the sophistication of the human world, was fiercely independent and unexpectedly organized. The days bled into one another, each marked by a monotonous cycle of harsh treatment and tense waiting. Their food consisted of scraps, mostly berries, some strangely tough roots, and the occasional disturbingly recognizable piece of roasted animal. They were kept in a small, damp cell, barely larger than a dog kennel. The walls were rough-hewn stone, cold and damp, and the air was thick with the stench of mildew and decay. Sleep offered little respite, their dreams haunted by shadows and the echoing growls of their captors. Yet, despite the harsh conditions, Alara and Finn refused to break. Their shared trauma, their mutual reliance, became a shield against the despair that threatened to engulf them. They found moments of quiet companionship in the shared darkness, whispering stories and memories to keep their spirits alive. Alara, ever the pragmatist, began to study the goblin's routine, searching for any weakness, any opportunity for escape. Finn, though still grieving, found a strength he hadn't known he possessed. Their resilience was not born from strength alone, but also from a deep-seated mutual respect and their unyielding commitment to each other. One evening, as the goblins were preparing for their crude nightly feast, Alara noticed a peculiar pattern. Certain goblins, seemingly charged with guarding their cell, would always leave for a short period of time around the same hour. It wasn't much, but it was something. A small window of opportunity, a glimmer of hope in the oppressive darkness. She shared her observation with Finn. They devised a plan, a risky, desperate gamble that relied on their wit, their knowledge of their captor's patterns, and a surprising amount of luck. Their escape wouldn't be easy. It would require precision, timing, and a healthy dose of courage. But they had endured this far, surviving not only the goblins' cruelty but also their own grief. Escape, while risky, was their only hope. As the goblins settled around their fire, the comforting glow highlighting the shadows on their faces, Alara and Finn waited, their hearts pounding in unison. The moment had arrived. The guards were away, a brief absence in their otherwise relentless vigil. Alara, with a quick motion, used a small shard of rock, sharpened over days, to cut the vines binding their wrists. The sound was agonizingly loud in the oppressive silence of their cell. Finn, despite the throbbing pain in his wrists, worked quickly, helping Alara free his own bonds and those of his sister. The escape was tense, perilous. The siblings moved through the labyrinthine tunnels with silent, practiced grace. Every creak, every rustle of their clothing sent chills down their spines. The possibility of recapture hung over them like a shadow, a constant reminder of the danger they faced. Yet, their hearts beat with a renewed sense of purpose. They had a chance to escape the clutches of the goblins, a chance to reunite with their family, and perhaps most importantly, a chance to face the future together. The path was uncertain, the darkness ahead daunting, but hand in hand, they moved forward into the uncertain night, leaving behind the crude, oppressive world of goblin captivity. But the whispers of the woods, the haunting memories of their captivity, continued to echo in their minds, a reminder of the harsh reality they had barely escaped. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and wood smoke, a suffocating blanket clinging to Alara and Finn as they crouched in the shadows, listening. The rhythmic thump of a goblin drum resonated from the cavern's depths, a hypnotic beat that pulsed in their ears. Alara, her heart hammering against her ribs, checked the crudely fashioned vine bindings around her wrists one last time. They were loosened, but not entirely severed, a delicate balance between freedom and the need for stealth. Finn, his eyes wide and alert, mirrored her concentration. He'd been quiet for the past few hours, a stark contrast to his usually boisterous demeanor, but the intensity in his gaze spoke volumes. The shared ordeal had forged an unspoken understanding between them, a bond stronger than any kinship they'd experienced before. They were each other's anchor in the storm, their combined strength far greater than the sum of their individual abilities. Alara had been studying the Goblin Guard's routines meticulously. She'd noticed a pattern, a brief lapse in their vigilance around the time the Goblin King retreated to his private chambers for his nightly rest. This wasn't a rest in the human sense of the word, more of a period of brooding silence punctuated by the occasional guttural grunt or snarl. That small window, that fleeting moment of inattention, was their ticket to freedom. Their escape plan was as simple as it was risky. The cavern was a labyrinth of twisting tunnels, but Alara had mapped out a potential route during her numerous surreptitious observations. She remembered a narrow passage, barely wide enough for a goblin to squeeze through, located behind a pile of discarded bones near the entrance to their cell. It was a long shot, but it was their best chance. The drumbeat intensified, signaling the approach of the Goblin King's repose. This was it. Alara subtly nudged Finn, her eyes conveying the urgency of the moment. With a shared nod, A silent pact sealed by fear and hope, they moved. Alara, using the sharpened shard of rock she'd painstakingly honed over days, finished severing the remaining vines binding their wrists. The snap of the last strand was a sharp, disconcerting sound in the oppressive stillness. Finn, despite the pain throbbing in his newly freed wrists, immediately began working on his own bonds, his fingers quick and efficient. The goblin's crude vines, though strong, were no match for their determined efforts. Their escape was a ballet of shadows and whispers, a frantic dance on the precipice of capture. They moved with the practiced grace of seasoned thieves, their every movement calculated, their senses honed to a razor's edge. The darkness, initially their jailer, was now their ally, masking their movements from the watchful eyes of the goblins. They navigated the labyrinthine tunnels, their progress punctuated by moments of intense fear and quiet relief. The passage behind the pile of bones proved to be even narrower than Alara remembered, forcing them to squeeze through with agonizing slowness. The smell of decay, the constant pressure of the earth against their bodies, was almost unbearable. But they pressed on, driven by an unwavering determination. As they moved deeper into the labyrinth, they encountered several smaller tunnels, branching off in unexpected directions. Each one represented a potential dead end, a possibility of being trapped and recaptured. Alara, relying on her keen observations, chose the pathways carefully, her mind racing, analyzing the subtle differences in the air currents and the temperature changes. Finn, his senses heightened by adrenaline, acted as her eyes, his agility enabling them to navigate the tight spaces with surprising ease. Their escape took them through areas of the cavern that they hadn't seen before, revealing a glimpse of the goblins' hidden world. They saw storage areas filled with scavenged treasures, rusty tools, broken pottery, animal bones, and oddly enough, a collection of brightly colored stones that seemed strangely out of place in the squalor. They also witnessed evidence of the goblins' surprisingly complex social structure, with designated areas for crafting weapons, preparing food, and even a crude form of schooling for the younger goblins. The sheer ingenuity of their survival, the way they managed to extract resources from such a harsh environment, astonished Alara and Finn. It was a far cry from their comfortable lives in the human villages, but it was an undeniable testament to their resilience, their tenacity, a ruthless pragmatism that allowed them to thrive in the most improbable of circumstances. It was a stark lesson in survival, a hard reality that added another layer of understanding to their harrowing adventure. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the edge of the cavern, emerging into a narrow passage that led towards the surface. The fresh air, the smell of pine needles and damp earth, was a wave of relief that washed over them. They were still not safe, but they were closer to freedom than they'd been in days. The forest, dark and intimidating, was no longer the playground of their innocent childhood memories. It was now a complex landscape, filled with danger and uncertainty, but it was also their escape route. They moved through the trees with renewed vigor, their bodies aching, their minds racing. Their escape wasn't complete yet. The goblins could easily follow them, but for now, they were free from their immediate confinement. They were out of the cavern, and that provided a tangible, much-needed surge of hope. The whispers of the woods, once cheerful and playful, now carried the weight of their escape, a solemn melody echoing their journey from the clutches of the goblins and into the uncertain embrace of the forest. The forest, once a sanctuary, had become a battleground, a testing ground for their survival, and a testament to the indomitable spirit that bound them together. Their journey was far from over, but for now, they clung to the fragile hope of freedom, their hands clasped tightly together. Emerging from the cavern mouth, the twins stumbled into the inky blackness of the forest. The sudden shift from the stifling air of the goblin cavern to the damp chill of the woods was a shock to their systems, but the relief of freedom was potent enough to override the discomfort. They pressed onward, their flight fueled by adrenaline and a primal instinct for survival. The whispers of the forest, once a comforting lullaby, now sounded like the rustling of unseen eyes, the creak of approaching danger. Their escape route, however, was far from clear. The path ahead was a tangled mess of thorny vines and fallen branches. their progress constantly hampered by the unforgiving terrain. The moon, a sliver of silver in the inky sky, offered little illumination, casting long, dancing shadows that played tricks on their weary eyes. Exhaustion gnawed at them, but the fear of recapture kept them moving, their steps measured and deliberate. After what seemed like hours of relentless trekking, they found themselves confronted by a formidable obstacle, a rickety, moss-covered bridge that spanned a chasm of indeterminate depth. The bridge itself was a marvel of questionable engineering, constructed from thick, gnarled branches lashed together with what looked like strips of toughened hide. It groaned under an unseen weight, every creak and groan a testament to its precarious state. But the bridge itself wasn't their only concern. A guttural snort emanated from the far side, followed by a low rumble that vibrated through the earth. Perched on a mossy boulder, surveying their approach with baleful eyes, was a troll. Not the grotesque, hulking monster of Alara's nightmares, but a surprisingly small troll. He was, however, undeniably grumpy. His face was a roadmap of wrinkles, his beard a tangled mass of gray and green, and his eyes, the color of muddied puddles, narrowed suspiciously at the sight of the twins. "Well, well," he grumbled, his voice like gravel rolling down a hill. "What's this, then? Two little morsels wandering into my domain uninvited?" Alara swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. Finn, ever the pragmatist, stepped forward. "We mean you no harm, sir," he said, his voice trembling slightly, but his posture firm. "We're just trying to get home." The troll snorted again, a sound that sent a shiver down Alara's spine. "Home? Across my bridge? That'll cost you." "Cost us?" Alara echoed, her voice barely a whisper. They had nothing left, not after their escape from the Goblin Cavern. The troll chuckled, a harsh, rattling sound. "Aye, cost you. A toll, you might say. I don't take gold, mind you, little humans. I prefer entertainment." Alara exchanged a worried glance with Finn. Entertainment? What kind of entertainment did a grumpy troll require? They were already exhausted, bruised, and hungry. They didn't have much to offer. "What kind of entertainment?" Finn asked cautiously, trying to sound as brave as possible. The troll stroked his beard thoughtfully. "A song, perhaps? A riddle? A good story? Something to amuse this old codger on a dreary night." Alara's mind raced. She was no singer, and her riddles were usually more confusing than clever. But Finn, despite his current state, possessed a remarkable talent for storytelling. He'd always been the more creative of the two, even if his stories often bordered on the fantastical and improbable. "I can tell you a story," Finn offered, his voice gaining confidence. "A story about a brave knight, a mischievous dragon, and a princess who can talk to animals." The troll's eyes widened slightly. "A talking princess? Intriguing. Let's hear it then. But make it good, or you'll be walking my bridge at your own risk, and I make no guarantees about its structural integrity." He gestured towards the bridge with a gnarled finger, emphasizing the point. The bridge groaned in protest. Finn, drawing on his vivid imagination, began to spin a tale, his words painting a picture of daring adventures, magical creatures, and impossible quests. He described the brave knight, his sword gleaming under the moonlight, battling a fearsome dragon whose scales shimmered with 1,000 colors. He wove a tale of friendship, betrayal, and eventual triumph, making the troll laugh with unexpected hearty guffaws. The story was a thrilling roller coaster of emotions, a captivating blend of humor and suspense. As Finn spoke, his own exhaustion seemed to melt away, replaced by a surge of creative energy. Even Alara found herself captivated, forgetting their perilous situation for a moment, lost in the world he was creating. The troll listened intently, his initial gruff demeanor slowly softening as Finn's narrative unfolded. His eyes, initially filled with suspicion, now held a glint of something akin to amusement, maybe even admiration. When Finn finally reached the story's conclusion, the troll was silent for a moment, stroking his beard in contemplation. Then, a surprisingly gentle smile spread across his wrinkled face. Not bad at all," he rumbled, his voice devoid of its previous harshness. "That was a proper tale. You've earned your passage." He stepped aside, gesturing towards the bridge. "Go on then, little morsels, but travel light and walk carefully. This old bridge doesn't like being rushed." With a mixture of relief and trepidation, Ilara and Finn stepped onto the rickety structure. Every step was accompanied by a heart-stopping creak, every sway a test of their balance. The bridge groaned and swayed under their weight, threatening to plunge them into the dark abyss below, but somehow, miraculously, they made it to the other side. As they reached the far bank, safe and sound, they looked back at the grumpy troll, who was already returning to his mossy boulder, humming a surprisingly cheerful tune. The adventure had been far from over, but this unexpected encounter with the troll had added a new layer to their understanding of survival. Sometimes, diplomacy and a well-spun tale could prove more effective than any weapon. The forest still held its secrets and dangers, but for now, the siblings felt a renewed sense of hope, the bond between them strengthened by their shared experiences and their ability to navigate the complexities of their newfound world, one step, one story, one unexpected friendship at a time. The whispers of the woods, no longer ominous, carried the faint echo of a troll's laughter and the triumphant ending of Finn's incredible tale. The path ahead remained shrouded in mystery, but they were ready to face it together. Beyond the grumpy troll's domain, the forest path opened into a small clearing. Before them, nestled amongst the gnarled roots of ancient trees, was the mouth of a cave. It wasn't the gaping maw of the goblin cavern, but rather a smaller, more secretive opening, almost swallowed by the encroaching vegetation. Ivy, thick and dark green, clung to the rough-hewn stone, obscuring the entrance in a curtain of emerald shadows. A damp chill emanated from within, a stark contrast to the relatively mild night air. Finn, ever the cautious one, reached out a hand to touch the cool stone. It was slick with moisture, the surface surprisingly smooth despite the rough texture of the rock itself. A faint, earthy smell hung in the air, mingling with the ever-present scent of damp leaves and decaying wood. But underlying these familiar forest aromas was something else, something different. A metallic tang, sharp and subtly acrid, that pricked at their nostrils and set their teeth on edge. Ilara felt a prickle of unease. The atmosphere had shifted palpably. The playful whispers of the forest, which had accompanied them throughout their journey, had fallen silent. Instead, a heavy, almost oppressive stillness hung in the air, punctuated only by the occasional drip of water from the cave's unseen depths. The silence felt unnatural, thick and heavy, like a blanket woven from anxieties. "Do you think?" Ilara began, her voice barely a whisper, her eyes fixed on the dark opening before them. Finn nodded slowly. "I think this is it," he replied, his own voice subdued. "The dragon's lair." The thought, which had been a looming possibility ever since they'd first heard the whispers of the legendary beast, now felt terrifyingly real. They had faced goblins, a grumpy troll, and the treacherous forest path, but none of those challenges had held the same level of dread as this dark, silent cave. The mere possibility of the encounter sparked a fresh wave of fear within them. They knew that the tale they had heard, the whispered legends they had read before venturing into the wilds, were not mere fictions. This encounter was real, and their lives were at risk. Gathering their courage, they stepped into the cave's mouth. The immediate transition was stark. The relative warmth and dim light of the clearing outside dissolved into a claustrophobic darkness. The air grew colder, damper, heavy with the scent of mildew, and something else, something ancient and indescribably old. Their eyes struggled to adjust to the gloom, their hands reaching out instinctively to steady themselves against the uneven walls. The deeper they ventured, the more pronounced the change in atmosphere became. The silence, once oppressive, now seemed to pulse with a low, almost imperceptible hum. Their ears strained, picking up the subtlest of sounds, the drip, drip, drip of water, the faint scrape of something unseen moving in the darkness ahead, and a rhythmic thumping, a dull, deep percussion that vibrated through the very ground beneath their feet. The cave was narrow at first, the passage barely wide enough for them to walk side by side. The walls were uneven, rough-hewn stone, cold and slick to the touch. Stalactites, some thick as a man's arm, hung from the ceiling, their sharp points reaching downwards like skeletal fingers. Water dripped constantly from these formations, forming small pools on the cave floor, adding to the already slippery terrain. As they moved deeper, the passage widened, opening into a larger chamber. The air here was even colder, the darkness more profound. The rhythmic thumping that they had heard earlier grew louder, more insistent, resonating deep within their chests, and a strange glow emanated from the far end of the chamber. It was not a light, yet it illuminated the cave with an eerie, spectral luminescence, giving off a ghostly glimmer. Fear, cold and clammy, gripped Alara's heart. She reached out for Finn's hand, her fingers tightening around his. He squeezed back, his reassurance a silent promise of support in the face of the unknown. The sounds intensified, the thumping now accompanied by a series of low growls, guttural and menacing. The light at the far end of the chamber seemed to pulse with the growls, intensifying the apprehension within them. The air crackled with anticipation, the tension so thick it was almost palpable. They moved forward, their steps slow and cautious, their hearts pounding in their chests like trapped birds. They could almost feel the dragon's presence, a palpable weight of power that hung in the air, thick and heavy like a shroud. It wasn't simply a creature, it was a force of nature, a sentient embodiment of the cave itself. The walls of the chamber seemed to close in on them, the darkness pressing down like a physical weight. The air grew heavy, thick with anticipation, each breath a labored effort. They were in the dragon's domain, and every sense screamed of it. The metallic tang in the air intensified, now accompanied by a subtle aroma of sulfur and something else, something akin to burnt flesh and ancient secrets. This was no ordinary cave. This was a place where magic clung to the very stones, a place where the earth itself whispered of forgotten ages and potent energies. This was the lair of a dragon, a place where the line between reality and legend blurred and disappeared. A massive shape began to emerge from the shadows at the far end of the cavern. Initially, it was just a suggestion of movement, a shifting of darkness. But as their eyes adjusted to the spectral glow, a vast silhouette began to take shape, immense and powerful, a figure that seemed to dominate the entire chamber. Fear, raw and primal, threatened to overwhelm them. The rhythmic thumping intensified, becoming a deafening roar. The growls coalesced into a single, terrifying sound that echoed through the cavern. This was it, the moment they had both dreaded and anticipated. They had reached the heart of the dragon's lair. The confrontation was imminent. The silence of the forest outside, the whispers of the woods, the laughter of the troll, all seemed distant and irrelevant now. All that mattered was the looming presence of the dragon, its power filling the chamber, pressing upon them. The ground beneath their feet trembled, the cavern walls seeming to breathe with the dragon's immense power. Their hands were clasped together tightly, their fingers intertwined, offering comfort and support against the overwhelming fear. Alara and Finn stood ready, facing the unknown, their courage tested and their resolve hardened by the adventure thus far. The next few moments would determine their fate. Their journey had brought them here, to the heart of the mystery, to the heart of the legend, to face the magnificent, terrifying creature that was the dragon. Their journey had just begun. The larger chamber opened before them, far exceeding their expectations. It wasn't merely spacious, it was colossal, a vast cavern that dwarfed even the grandest hall they had ever seen. The spectral glow, emanating from the far side, intensified as they entered, revealing towering formations of crystalline rock that pulsed with an otherworldly light. These weren't ordinary stalactites and stalagmites. They were massive, shimmering structures, some taller than any tree they'd encountered in the forest, their surfaces etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change with the pulsating light. The rhythmic thumping, which had been a constant companion in their descent, now resonated with a bone-jarring intensity. It wasn't just a sound, it was a vibration that seemed to permeate their very being, shaking the ground beneath their feet and causing the crystalline structures to shimmer and resonate. The air itself vibrated, a palpable hum that added to the growing sense of awe and apprehension. As they moved deeper into the cavern, The metallic tang in the air intensified, blending with the scent of sulfur and the strange, almost sickeningly sweet aroma of burnt sugar. A low growl rumbled through the cavern, causing small pebbles to skitters across the cavern floor, a sound that sent shivers down their spines. This wasn't just the lair of a dragon, it was a sanctuary, a place of immense power and ancient magic. Then they saw her, the dragon. She wasn't the monstrous beast of legend, the fire-breathing terror that haunted their nightmares. She was different, immense, yes, her size dwarfing even the largest of the crystalline formations, scales the color of a stormy night sky, shimmering with an iridescent sheen, covered her colossal body. Her wings, folded close, were vast, each feather larger than any they had ever seen, but despite her size and the inherent majesty of her form, there was a gentleness about her, a vulnerability that belied her raw power. She was nestled in a shallow alcove, a protective curve in the cavern wall, her massive head resting on a pile of what appeared to be shimmering, obsidian-like eggs. The rhythmic thumping they had heard was the gentle beating of her heart, a powerful drum resonating through the cavern. The spectral glow seemed to emanate from the eggs themselves, bathing the alcove in a soft, ethereal light. Alara and Finn stood frozen, their initial fear replaced by a stunned silence. They had expected a fearsome beast, a creature of destruction, but instead they found a mother fiercely protecting her young. The growls they had heard were not threats, but a low, rumbling murmur, a protective sound emitted from the depths of her immense chest. The dragon's eyes, large and intelligent, opened slowly. They were the color of molten gold, flecked with emerald green, and held a depth of wisdom and weariness that was both heartbreaking and awe-inspiring. They looked at Alara and Finn not with anger or hostility, but with an ancient, knowing sadness. It was as if she had seen countless generations pass through her cavern, each with their own hopes and fears, their own journeys. The silence stretched, heavy and expectant. The only sounds were the soft thump of the dragon's heart and the gentle hiss of her breath, the air around them thick with an ancient power that was both terrifying and strangely comforting. The initial fear, raw and primal, slowly faded, replaced by an overwhelming sense of wonder and a hesitant respect. Alara, slowly recovering her voice, whispered, She's protecting her eggs." Finn nodded, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and relief. "She's not a monster." The dragon shifted slightly, her massive head moving just enough to observe them more closely. Her golden eyes, wise and ancient, seemed to penetrate their very souls. It wasn't a hostile gaze, but one of assessment, a careful observation of two tiny creatures who had dared to trespass into her sanctuary. Suddenly, one of the obsidian eggs began to tremble. A small crack appeared on its surface, spreading slowly like a spider web. The dragon's head lowered, her massive body gently shifting to shield the egg from any potential disturbance. Her movements, despite their size, were delicate, graceful, almost maternal. Another crack appeared on a second egg, then a third. The rhythmic thumping of her heart intensified, mirroring the growing excitement in the air. The siblings exchanged a look of wonder, their fears completely dispelled. This wasn't the terror they'd anticipated. This was something far greater, far more profound. This was a mother protecting her children. The dragon, aware of their presence, made no aggressive moves. She simply continued to guard her eggs, her massive body a shield against any potential threat. The vibrant glow emanating from the eggs intensified, the air around them tingling with anticipation. The chamber pulsed with a strange, almost sacred energy. This wasn't a lair of fear, it was a nest of hope, a haven of life. The air was charged with a mixture of awe, wonder, and respect. Alara and Finn stood silently, captivated by the scene before them. The metallic tang of the air was now less acrid, dulled by the warmth of the dragon's presence. The initial dread was entirely gone, replaced by a profound sense of empathy and admiration. They had come seeking a dragon, expecting a monster. Instead, they had found a mother, a creature of immense power and incredible gentleness. The legendary beast of their childhood tales was far more complex, far more nuanced than they could have ever imagined. As the first egg fully cracked and a small obsidian-scaled dragonette emerged, chirping softly, Alara and Finn realized that their journey had brought them not to a confrontation, but to a revelation. Their perception of the dragon, of their entire adventure, had shifted radically. This wasn't merely about facing danger, it was about understanding, about discovering the unexpected nuances of even the most formidable creatures. The whispers in the woods had led them to a far greater understanding than they could ever have hoped for. Their adventure was far from over, but its meaning had taken on a far richer, more profound significance. The first dragonette, no bigger than a house cat, emerged from its cracked shell, its obsidian scales shimmering faintly in the ethereal glow. It chirped a tiny, reedy sound, a delicate counterpoint to the dragon's deep, resonant breaths. Two more followed quickly, their tiny claws scrabbling on the obsidian shell before they tumbled out, joining their sibling in a wriggling pile. The mother dragon nudged them gently with her snout, a touch so light it barely disturbed their miniature forms. Alara and Finn watched, mesmerized. The fear that had gripped them earlier had completely vanished, replaced by an overwhelming sense of wonder. This wasn't the terrifying monster of legend. This was a mother, fiercely protective of her vulnerable young. The metallic tang in the air seemed to have softened, the sulfurous scent muted by the overwhelming sweetness of the moment. The dragon, seemingly sensing their empathy, let out a low rumble, a sound that resonated deep within their chests, far more comforting than menacing. It wasn't a roar, but a sigh, a release of pent-up emotion, a sound that spoke volumes without words. It was then that the dragon began to communicate, not with spoken words, but through a series of subtle movements, gestures, and roars that carried a weight of unspoken history. Her tale unfolded slowly, a tapestry woven from memories of pain and loss, of betrayal and misunderstanding. Through a series of powerful, expressive roars, punctuated by delicate shifts of her massive body, she depicted a past filled with sorrow and loneliness. Each roar held a different emotion: anguish, regret, longing. The gestures were equally eloquent. A sweep of her wing could depict a vast, sun-drenched meadow. A subtle lowering of her head could portray the weight of despair. She showed them a time before the conflict, a time when she had lived in harmony with the villagers, a time when her presence was a source of awe and wonder rather than fear. She displayed images of shared feasts, of children playing at the edge of her territory, of a mutual respect born out of a shared understanding. The crystalline structures in the cavern pulsed with a softer light as she relayed her story, mirroring the emotions swelling within her. Then, the narrative shifted. A sharp, agonizing roar depicted the arrival of strangers, men in strange clothes bearing weapons that glittered like the shards of starlight. They were invaders, trespassers on her ancestral land, who sought to exploit the power that pulsed through the very stones of her cavern. She showed them how they desecrated her home, how they stole from her, how they wounded her pride and threatened her young. Her roars intensified, conveying the escalating desperation of her situation. The invaders, driven by greed and ambition, ignored her attempts at communication. They didn't understand her attempts to defend her home, to protect her eggs, to safeguard the very essence of her being. Their actions were driven by ignorance, prejudice, and a hunger for power that blinded them to the consequences of their actions. She showed the images of her retaliations, actions born out of fear and desperation, not innate malice. Each devastating strike against the village was shown, but with a heavy weight of regret, a visible burden of sorrow clinging to each memory. She then displayed the devastating aftermath of the attacks, the villages burning, the villagers fleeing in fear. She hadn't meant to hurt anyone, her story conveyed. It was only self-preservation, a desperate attempt to defend her home and her future. The images were stark, showing the devastation of her actions, the pain she had inadvertently inflicted. The silence that followed the final image was heavier than any sound. Alara and Finn were profoundly moved. The magnificent creature before them, a being of immense power, was also a being of deep sorrow and regret. They saw the weight of her past, the burden of her actions, and they understood. They understood the miscommunication, the fear, the desperate need to protect her own. They saw the tragedy in her eyes, a tragedy mirrored in the pulsing light of the crystalline structures surrounding them. The dragon's sorrow was palpable, a wave of anguish that washed over them. Alara reached out a hand, a small gesture of understanding and empathy in the face of such immense sadness. The dragon lowered her head slightly, her golden eyes mirroring the sorrow in Alara's heart. It wasn't a display of submission, it was a sharing of pain, a recognition of shared suffering. Finn, equally moved, stepped forward, mirroring Alara's action. He felt the dragon's sorrow as if it were his own. The ancient creature before them wasn't an enemy. She was a victim of circumstance, misunderstood, and alone. The initial fear and prejudice they'd felt had been completely erased, replaced by a deep sense of compassion and understanding. The dragon, sensing their empathy, let out a low rumble, a sound filled with profound relief and a hint of hope. The pulsing glow of the crystalline formations intensified, the light seeming to embrace them in its warmth. It was as if the cavern itself was acknowledging the change in atmosphere, the shift in understanding that had taken place. The previous tension and fear now felt as distant as a forgotten dream. The dragon continued, showing images of her longing for peace, for reconciliation, for a return to the days of harmony she had once known. Her gestures became more hopeful, her roars less filled with anguish and more infused with a quiet desire for understanding. She showed them visions of a future where cooperation could exist, where the misunderstandings of the past could be overcome through empathy and understanding. The vision ended with a soft, gentle roar, a tender sound conveying her hope for a future free from conflict. The shimmering light surrounding her eggs pulsed with a renewed vibrancy, reflecting the shift in emotion within the cavern. It wasn't just a physical space anymore, it was a repository of memories, a sanctuary of emotions, a place where past, present, and future intertwined. Alara and Finn looked at each other, their eyes reflecting the profound impact of the dragon's story. Their journey had transformed from a quest to confront a monster into a mission of reconciliation and understanding. They had come seeking a dragon, but they had found something far greater, a mother in need, a victim of circumstances, a creature longing for peace and understanding. The Whispering Woods had led them to a much deeper understanding than they could have ever imagined. It was a lesson in empathy, in forgiveness, and in the power of seeing beyond fear to find the truth, however painful it might be. Their adventure was far from over, but its purpose had undergone a dramatic shift. It was no longer just about survival. It was about restoring peace and harmony to a fractured world. The crystalline structures pulsed with a slower, more somber rhythm now, the light dimming to a soft, mournful glow that mirrored the dragon's next revelation. Her roars ceased, replaced by a series of low, guttural sounds that conveyed a profound sadness, a grief so deep it seemed to permeate the very air around them. She shifted her weight, her massive body settling onto the cavern floor, the movement slow and deliberate, as if the weight of her sorrow was almost too much to bear. With painstaking slowness, she began to depict a different kind of loss, one far removed from the clash of weapons and the burning villages. She showed them images of other dragonettes, small and vibrant, playing amidst flowering meadows, their scales shimmering under a sun-drenched sky. These weren't the obsidian-scaled hatchlings nestled beside her. These were older, more mature dragonettes, their playful energy radiating from the crystalline images. The scenes were idyllic, full of warmth and light, starkly contrasting with the grim memories of the conflict that had preceded them. Then, the images shifted. The bright meadows were replaced by a desolate landscape, scarred and ravaged. The playful dragonettes were gone, replaced by the chilling emptiness of loss. The dragon's roars were replaced by a series of mournful sighs, each one carrying the weight of unbearable sorrow. The crystalline formations reflected her grief, their light flickering and dimming, echoing the rhythm of her heartbreak. She showed them the faces of her lost children, their scales gleaming faintly, their eyes closed in eternal slumber. Alara and Finn watched, transfixed. They saw not just the devastation of a mother's loss, but also the quiet, lingering pain of a survivor. The dragon wasn't merely conveying a story. She was pouring out her soul, allowing them to witness the raw, unfiltered agony of her grief. The intensity of her emotions was overwhelming, a tidal wave of sadness that threatened to engulf them. The dragon's grief was not a monster's rage, not a creature's bloodlust. It was a mother's despair, a profound and heartbreaking sorrow that resonated deeply within their own hearts. They remembered their own losses, the pain of absence, the ache of what might have been. Elara thought of her father, his kind smile and gentle touch now distant memories, and a familiar ache settled in her chest. Finn recalled the stories his grandmother had told him about her lost love, a soldier who never returned from war, and he felt a pang of sympathy he hadn't known he possessed. The similarities were undeniable. The dragon, a being of immense power, was also a creature capable of profound love and devastating loss. The villagers, driven by fear and misunderstanding, had inflicted pain on her, just as loss had inflicted pain on Elara and Finn. The cycle of pain and loss echoed through the cavern, linking the dragon's sorrow with their own, bridging the chasm that once separated them. The dragon then showed them the cause of her children's deaths, not the actions of the villagers, but a creeping blight, a sickness that swept through the land, poisoning the water and wilting the vegetation. It had attacked her children, weakening them, and eventually taking them away. This was not a battle she could have won, not a conflict she could have prevented. This was a grief beyond her control, a natural disaster that had inflicted its own devastating blow. This revelation shattered any lingering image of the dragon as a purely malicious creature. Her grief was genuine, her pain undeniable. It wasn't a carefully crafted act to manipulate them. It was a raw expression of suffering, a testament to the depth of her maternal bond. The empathy Elara and Finn felt wasn't simply pity. It was a deep, resonant understanding, a recognition of shared vulnerability. The children had come to this place seeking a solution, a way to end the conflict, perhaps even to vanquish the dragon. But in the face of such profound sorrow, the quest for vengeance seemed petty, insignificant. The dragon's grief had transformed their mission, shifting the focus from conflict to reconciliation, from destruction to understanding. The silence that followed the final image of her lost young was heavy, punctuated only by the soft drip of water from the cavern ceiling. The crystalline formations glowed with a soft, comforting light, a silent acknowledgement of the shared sorrow. Elara and Finn felt a deep sense of connection with the magnificent creature before them, a kinship born of shared grief and a profound understanding of loss. Elara moved closer, her hand reaching out again, not in fear, but in sympathy. The dragon, sensing her intent, lowered her massive head, allowing Elara to gently touch a scale, smooth and cool beneath her fingertips. It wasn't a sign of dominance or submission. It was an act of shared vulnerability, a mutual recognition of sorrow. Finn mirrored Elara's action, his hand trembling slightly as he touched the dragon's hide. He felt a warmth radiating from her, a comfort that transcended the physical touch. It was a warmth born of empathy, of shared understanding, a recognition that their journeys, though seemingly disparate, were ultimately interconnected. The dragon let out a low sigh, a sound that resonated deeply within the cavern, a sound that spoke volumes without words. It wasn't a roar of fury or a cry of pain. It was a release, a letting go of some of the heavy weight of sorrow that had burdened her for so long. The air in the cavern seemed to lighten, the darkness receding slightly, making way for a glimmer of hope. The dragon shifted again, her body slowly rising to its full majestic height. The sadness in her eyes hadn't vanished entirely, but it was tempered now by a hint of something else, acceptance perhaps, or resilience. The light from the crystalline structures intensified, the color shifting from somber gray to a soft, hopeful blue. She then showed them images of a future, not one of unending conflict, but of cautious reconciliation. The villagers were shown, not as terrified refugees or desperate attackers, but as people tentatively rebuilding their lives. The dragon was shown, not as a fearsome beast, but as a protector, a guardian of the land. The images weren't clear or perfect, they were glimpses, hints of what could be, and they reflected the uncertainty inherent in any attempt at healing. The dragon's roars were now filled with a cautious hope, a quiet determination to create a better future. She wasn't asking for forgiveness, she was seeking understanding, a chance to heal the wounds of the past. Alara and Finn, moved by the dragon's vulnerability and her longing for peace, felt a shift within themselves. Their mission had changed once again. It was no longer simply about finding a solution to the conflict, nor just about understanding the dragon's perspective. It had become a joint mission, a shared journey towards healing and reconciliation. They were now participants, not just observers, in the complex tapestry of restoring harmony to their fractured world. They had come seeking a monster, but they had found a grieving mother, and in the process, discovered the universal language of pain and the possibility of unexpected kinship. The whispers of the woods had led them to a profound truth. The path to peace often begins not with resolution, but with shared sorrow, shared understanding, and the courage to look beyond fear to the heart of another, however different that heart may seem. The dragon's revelation hung in the air, a heavy, shimmering silence that pressed upon Alara and Finn. The images of the blighted land, the withered vegetation, the small, lifeless bodies of the dragonettes, these weren't the terrifying symbols of a monstrous enemy, but the stark, heartbreaking realities of a mother's loss. The raw, unfiltered grief radiating from the creature before them had shattered their preconceived notions, leaving them reeling in the aftermath of a profound emotional earthquake. Alara, the fiercer of the two siblings, found herself wrestling with a wave of unexpected guilt. Her initial anger, her burning desire for revenge, it all felt petty, insignificant now, dwarfed by the immeasurable sorrow of the dragon. The villagers' fear had been understandable, their actions born out of desperation and a lack of understanding. But Alara's own reactions had been fueled by a youthful, impulsive rage, a righteous fury that now felt embarrassingly inadequate. She had envisioned a glorious confrontation, a battle of wits and might that would end with the dragon vanquished, its reign of terror over. Instead, she found herself staring at a grieving mother, the scale of her loss dwarfing any victory she might have imagined. Finn, quieter and more introspective than his sister, grappled with a similar internal conflict. He had always possessed a gentler spirit, often acting as a counterbalance to Alara's fiery temper. But even he had shared in the villagers' fear, had felt the instinctive urge to fight back against the perceived threat. The dragon's story, however, had cracked open his understanding of the world. He saw the reflection of his own family's history in the dragon's plight, a cycle of loss and fear perpetuating itself through generations. His grandmother's tales of her lost love, a soldier swallowed by the brutality of war, resonated with the dragon's tale. Both losses were senseless and heart-wrenching, caused not by deliberate malice, but by the cruel hand of fate. The cavern seemed to shrink around them, the vast emptiness now echoing with the weight of their own internal struggles. The crystalline formations, once a source of awe and fear, now glowed with a softer, more compassionate light, mirroring the shift occurring within their hearts. The initial anger, the desire for revenge began to recede, replaced by a dawning understanding, a growing empathy for the creature before them. Alara ran a hand through her hair, her fingers tangled in the thick braid. The image of her father, his gentle smile forever frozen in her memory, flickered in her mind. His death, a tragic accident during a hunting expedition, had left a void in her life, a constant ache that had shaped her perspective on the world. His loss had fueled her rage towards the dragon, casting the creature as a symbol of all the pain and unfairness she had experienced in her life. But now, confronted with the dragon's agony, she saw the folly of her assumptions, the way her anger had clouded her judgment. It wasn't just about the village, Alara murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. It was about everything, about Dad, about all the losses, about the fear. I just wanted it to stop. Finn nodded slowly, his eyes reflecting the flickering light of the crystalline structures. I know, he said quietly. Me too. But maybe we were wrong. Maybe fighting isn't the answer. The dragon watched them, her obsidian eyes filled with a cautious hope. She didn't offer words of comfort or reassurance, but her stillness conveyed a silent acceptance of their struggle, a recognition of their shared humanity. The weight of her grief had somehow created a bridge between them, a fragile connection formed in the crucible of shared loss. The siblings sat in silence for a long time, each grappling with the emotional upheaval triggered by the dragon's confession. The image of the dragonettes, small and vulnerable, haunted them. Alara imagined their playful energy, their bright scales catching the sunlight, and the thought intensified her guilt. Finn pictured the dragon's despair as she watched her children fade away, her helplessness mirroring their own powerlessness in the face of their father's death. Slowly, painstakingly, they began to dismantle the fortress of anger they had built around themselves. They acknowledged their own capacity for rage, for fear, for the desire to inflict pain in return. But they also acknowledged the limits of vengeance, the futility of seeking retribution for a pain that had been inflicted, in both their cases and the dragons, by forces beyond their control. The process wasn't easy. The anger, deeply ingrained and fiercely protected, did not yield readily. It flared up occasionally, like embers rekindled by a sudden gust of wind, but each time it was met with a growing understanding, a renewed empathy for the dragon. The siblings recognized that their rage wasn't a solution, but a manifestation of their own deep-seated pain, a pain that needed to be acknowledged, processed, and ultimately let go. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the cavern, Alara and Finn emerged from their internal struggle with a renewed sense of purpose. Their mission had fundamentally shifted. It was no longer a quest for vengeance, but a journey towards reconciliation, a shared effort towards healing. They weren't just seeking to understand the dragon's perspective anymore. They were seeking to understand their own, to unravel the complexities of their anger and find a way to move forward. The dragon, sensing this shift, let out a low rumble that reverberated through the cavern, a sound devoid of the menace it had once held. It was a sound of weariness, of acceptance, a quiet acknowledgement of the shared pain that had drawn them together. The crystalline structures pulsed with a renewed energy, the light now shimmering with a soft, hopeful glow, a testament to the burgeoning understanding between them. The path ahead remained uncertain, fraught with challenges, but for the first time, it felt less like a battle and more like a journey of healing, a shared quest towards a future where understanding could finally conquer fear. The whispers of the woods had indeed led them to a profound truth. The path to peace often begins with shared sorrow and the courage to look beyond fear into the heart of another. The air in the cavern, once thick with tension, now felt lighter, almost buoyant. The siblings sat in companionable silence, the rhythmic drip of water from the crystalline formations, a soothing counterpoint to the turmoil that still simmered beneath the surface. Alara, usually quick to action, found herself strangely still, her mind replaying the dragon's story like a broken record. The images, the ravaged landscape, the tiny lifeless bodies, were etched into her memory, a stark reminder of the dragon's profound loss. The weight of that loss pressed down on her, heavier than any physical burden. It was Finn who broke the silence, his voice soft, almost hesitant. Do you think she did it on purpose?" he asked, his gaze fixed on the shimmering formations. Alara shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered. "I don't think so. It was a sickness," she said. Something that swept through her clutch. It wasn't malice, Finn. It was grief. The thought lingered between them, heavy with the unspoken implications. The villagers, fueled by fear and misinformation, had attributed the blight to the dragon's malevolence, assuming intentional destruction. But the truth, revealed in the dragon's anguished confession, was far more tragic, far more complex. The dragon wasn't a monster. She was a mother who had lost her children. Alara remembered her own father, the warmth of his embrace, the comforting weight of his hand on her shoulder. His unexpected death, a hunting accident, had left a gaping hole in her life. a wound that had festered and hardened into a deep-seated bitterness. The dragon's loss resonated with her own, a painful echo that shattered the carefully constructed walls of her anger. She had projected her own grief, her own sense of injustice onto the dragon, transforming a grieving creature into a symbol of her own pain. A wave of shame washed over her. Her earlier fury, her thirst for revenge, it all seemed so small, so insignificant now, dwarfed by the immensity of the dragon's sorrow. She had allowed her grief to fuel her hatred, blinding her to the possibility of understanding. She had failed to see the dragon not as a threat, but as a being consumed by a sorrow that mirrored her own. Finn, ever the thoughtful one, reached out and placed a comforting hand on Alara's arm. "We were so quick to judge," he murmured. "We let our fear dictate our actions. We didn't even try to understand." He spoke of his grandmother's stories, of the countless tales of loss and hardship that had been passed down through generations. These stories, once a source of fascination, now held a new, profound significance. He had seen the dragon's suffering not merely as an isolated incident, but as a part of a larger, more universal cycle of pain and loss, a cycle that echoed through time and touched every life in some way. The cavern seemed to breathe around them, the crystalline structures pulsating with a subtle, ethereal glow. It was as if the very stones themselves were resonating with the siblings' growing empathy, with the subtle shift occurring within their hearts. The cold, hard stones seemed to soften, their sharp edges smoothed by the growing compassion blossoming within the siblings. Alara thought of the villagers, their faces etched with fear, their weapons raised in defiance. She imagined their homes, the fields they tilled, their lives disrupted by the blight. Their fear had been understandable, born out of desperation and a lack of knowledge. But now, in light of the dragon's confession, their fear no longer seemed like a justification for hatred or revenge. It had been a different kind of grief, a shared human experience rooted in desperation and fear of the unknown, a fear they too had felt. The weight of the villagers' fear was as heavy as the dragon's grief, a reminder of the destructive power of unchecked emotions. The siblings felt the crushing weight of collective pain, the intertwined sorrows of the villagers and the dragon. They were faced with the responsibility to heal not only their own wounds, but also the wounds of the community, bridging the gulf of fear and misunderstanding. The realization struck Alara with the force of a physical blow. The dragon's sorrow wasn't just a singular tragedy, it was a reflection of the shared human experience, a mirror to their own pain and their own capacity for both immense suffering and equally immense compassion. The sun began to set, casting long, dramatic shadows across the cavern walls. The siblings sat in silence, their newfound understanding settling slowly but surely into their hearts. They were no longer adversaries, locked in a battle for vengeance. They were witnesses, united by a shared experience of grief and loss, a bond forged in the crucible of compassion. They were facing a shared future, not as enemies, but as potential allies. The dragon stirred, a low rumble vibrating through the cavern floor. It wasn't a threatening sound, it was a sound of exhaustion, of weariness, of acceptance. It was a sound that mirrored the siblings' own emotional exhaustion, the profound fatigue of processing such a tremendous shift in their understanding. Alara looked at her brother, a new understanding blossoming between them. They shared a glance, a silent acknowledgement of the long and difficult journey that lay ahead. The path to healing wouldn't be easy. There would be moments of doubt, moments of relapse, moments when their old anger threatened to resurface. But they had found something new in the heart of the cavern, something far more powerful than revenge, a shared empathy, a potent force for healing. They had found the courage to understand, to empathize, to forgive, and that they realized was the beginning of true reconciliation. The journey ahead wouldn't be merely about healing their own wounds or those of the village. It would be about helping the dragon to heal. The siblings looked at the dragon, recognizing her vulnerability. Her losses were immense, the pain of losing her children, a wound that would take a long time to heal. But they could help, they realized. They could offer not vengeance, but compassion, not judgment, but understanding. A flicker of hope ignited in Alara's heart, fragile yet powerful. The path forward wasn't clear, it was still riddled with uncertainties and challenges, but the darkness of their initial anger had begun to recede, giving way to the faint, promising light of empathy and shared sorrow. The shared experience of loss, of the pain of their respective fathers, had created an unusual bridge of understanding, paving the way for reconciliation and healing. It was a path towards a future where anger could be replaced with understanding, where fear could give way to compassion, and where the whispered truths of the forest could finally bring about a lasting peace. The dragon's rumble, soft and resonant, was no longer a terrifying sound, but a shared sigh of relief, a subtle acknowledgement of their newfound connection, and the promise of a future bathed in the light of understanding. The cavern air hung heavy with unspoken words, the silence punctuated only by the slow, deliberate drip of water echoing through the vast chamber. The dragon, her scales shimmering in the faint light filtering from the cavern mouth, remained still, her massive form radiating a quiet intensity that spoke volumes. Alara and Finn, sitting a respectful distance away, watched her with a mixture of apprehension and a burgeoning empathy that surprised them both. The raw emotion in the dragon's confession had shaken them to their core, stripping away their preconceived notions and revealing the depth of her pain. It was a pain that mirrored their own, a shared sorrow that transcended species and fueled a growing understanding. The dragon's head lowered slightly, her massive form seeming to shrink under the weight of her grief. A low rumble, deep within her chest, vibrated through the cavern floor, a sound that felt less like a threat and more like a sigh of profound exhaustion. Then, in a voice that resonated with a surprising gentleness, she spoke. I understand your anger, she said, her words slow and deliberate, each syllable heavy with remorse. I understand your fear. I deserve your wrath, but I beg you to see beyond the destruction, beyond the blight, to see the mother who has lost everything. Tears, thick and viscous, welled in Alara's eyes. The dragon's words, far from justifying her actions, painted a picture of unbearable sorrow. The image of the dragon, not as a malevolent beast, but as a heartbroken mother, overwhelmed her. The dragon's vulnerability was a stark contrast to the image of power and destruction she had previously held. Her heart ached for the lost dragonettes, for the immeasurable pain the dragon must have endured. The dragon's pain was not unlike her own, an echo of the void left by her father's absence. The sickness, it came without warning. The dragon continued, her voice laced with a tremor that suggested immense pain. It swept through my clutch like a wildfire, leaving only ash and despair in its wake. I tried, I did everything I could, but I couldn't save them. I watched them wither, fade, die, in my arms. The dragon's voice cracked, the raw emotion in her words piercing Alara and Finn's hearts. The raw, visceral description painted a horrific tableau of loss, a scene so harrowing it brought tears to Alara's eyes. She saw her own father's lifeless form reflected in the dragon's sorrowful gaze. Finn, usually reserved, reached out, a gesture of shared understanding and unspoken compassion. He had witnessed firsthand the devastation caused by the blight, the suffering it inflicted on the villagers. He remembered the stories his grandmother used to tell, tales of ancient plagues and calamities that ravaged the land. These weren't abstract historical accounts. They were echoes of the dragon's present anguish, evidence of the universal cycle of grief and loss. The dragon's gaze shifted from Alara to Finn, her expression a mixture of hope and trepidation. The blight, it wasn't intended, she whispered. It was a consequence of my grief, of my despair, my sorrow. It poisoned the land, just as it poisoned my soul. The dragon's words were a confession, a desperate plea for understanding. She had not meant to inflict pain upon the villagers. Her actions were an unintended consequence of her immeasurable sorrow. Her pain had bled into the earth, mirroring the pain in Alara's and Finn's hearts. Alara felt a profound shift within herself. The anger, the burning desire for revenge, began to recede, replaced by a wave of overwhelming empathy. The dragon wasn't a monster. She was a creature consumed by grief, a mother mourning the loss of her children. The shared experience of loss, the shared understanding of the depths of sorrow, created an unbreakable bond between the siblings and the dragon. We understand, Ilara whispered, her voice choked with emotion. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of years of anger, fear, and misunderstanding. She had finally recognized the common thread connecting them, the shared experience of loss. This shared experience transcended their differences, forging an unexpected connection. The bond was born out of shared sorrow and was more powerful than any animosity. The dragon seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, a tremor running through her massive form. Then, perhaps, there is hope, she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. Perhaps we can heal together. The siblings exchanged a look. The journey to healing wouldn't be easy. There were still wounds to tend, both their own and those of the villagers. But they had found something far more potent than revenge, a shared understanding, a potent force for reconciliation. They needed to help the villagers understand the dragon's plight, to bridge the gap between fear and compassion. The siblings were determined to bring the entire community together, to foster understanding and empathy for the dragon's overwhelming grief. The dragon offered to help. She proposed to share her knowledge of the land, her ancient wisdom, to aid in restoring the blighted fields and helping the villagers heal. She spoke of forgotten remedies, of ancient rituals capable of restoring the balance of nature. It was a humble offering, a gesture of atonement from a being capable of immense destruction. Her willingness to make amends touched the siblings profoundly. The cavern felt warmer now, the air less heavy, the shadows less menacing. The siblings realized that true healing was not about vengeance, but about understanding, about bridging the chasm of fear and creating a shared path towards a better future. The path wouldn't be devoid of challenges. Overcoming ingrained prejudices and fears wouldn't be easy. Yet, a new hope bloomed amidst the darkness, a hope for reconciliation, for a peaceful coexistence. The shared burden of loss had unexpectedly woven a fragile bond of unity between the siblings, the villagers, and the dragon, creating the potential for forgiveness, understanding, and a brighter future. The weight of shared sorrow forged a new path, one paved with compassion and empathy, leading towards the possibility of healing and a lasting peace. The journey ahead would be long and arduous, but they were ready to face it together. The dragon's plea, a cry for forgiveness, had marked the beginning of their healing journey. The once terrifying presence was now a beacon of hope, ready to help the community and atone for her unintentional actions. The shadows of the cavern seemed to lighten, the air less heavy, and the path towards reconciliation illuminated by a faint yet powerful light. The dragon, whose name they learned was Lyra, gestured with a clawed hand towards a hidden passage behind a curtain of shimmering stalactites. "My family, they await you," she rumbled, her voice softer than before, a tremor of vulnerability still present. Hesitantly, Ilara and Finn followed her, their hearts pounding a rhythm of apprehension and hope. The passage opened into a vast, surprisingly warm cavern, bathed in a soft, ethereal glow emanating from bioluminescent fungi clinging to the cavern walls. In the center, nestled amongst glowing moss and crystal formations, was a family unlike any they had ever imagined. Lyra's family were smaller, younger dragons, their scales a myriad of vibrant colors, ranging from emerald green to sapphire blue, ruby red, and amethyst purple. Their eyes shone with intelligence and warmth, a stark contrast to the fearsome image they had initially conjured in Ilara and Finn's minds. They were not monstrous beasts of destruction, but a family, united by love and loyalty, and deeply wounded by loss. The young dragons, Lyra explained, were her nieces and nephews, the children of her siblings, who had perished in the blight. The air in the cavern buzzed with a quiet energy, a sense of familial warmth and shared grief. One of the young dragons, a vibrant emerald green with eyes like molten gold, approached Ilara tentatively. She offered a small, delicately crafted flower, its petals a luminous, pearly white. Ilara, surprised by the gesture, accepted it gently, feeling a wave of warmth wash over her. The young dragon nuzzled her hand with its snout, a soft, comforting gesture that dissolved the last vestiges of her fear. The days that followed were a slow, gradual process of healing, both physical and emotional. Lyra and her family provided a sanctuary, a safe haven where Alara and Finn could shed their burdens without judgment. They shared stories, not of destruction and fear, but of love, family, and the enduring power of hope. Lyra's nieces and nephews, though young, offered a unique kind of comfort, their innocent joy a balm to the siblings' wounded souls. They played games, told stories, and shared laughter, a sound that had become strangely unfamiliar to Alara and Finn in the aftermath of their father's death and the devastation caused by the blight. Alara found herself opening up to them, sharing the pain of her loss, the crushing weight of her father's absence. For the first time since his death, she allowed herself to grieve openly, without the suffocating weight of guilt and anger. The young dragons listened patiently, their empathy a comforting presence. They understood loss. They had experienced it firsthand. Their shared sorrow created an unbreakable bond, a tapestry woven with threads of pain and resilience. Finn, usually reserved, also found solace in the dragon family's warmth. He learned to trust again, to believe in the possibility of kindness and compassion, even in a world scarred by destruction. He shared his own experiences, his memories of his father, and the terror he felt witnessing the blight's devastation on their village. Lyra listened intently, offering words of comfort and understanding. She explained that the blight was a consequence of her own grief, a dark reflection of her despair. Her confession offered him solace, a reminder that even the most powerful beings are vulnerable, capable of immense pain and regret. Lyra's family helped the siblings in practical ways too. They shared their knowledge of herbal remedies, teaching Alara and Finn how to prepare poultices and infusions to heal the blighted land. The older dragons shared stories of ancient rituals, forgotten practices designed to restore balance and harmony to the natural world. They taught them how to communicate with the earth, how to nurture the land, and help it heal from the blight's devastating effects. This work brought them comfort. It was a tangible way to express their remorse and contribute to healing the world around them. Their healing wasn't solely dependent on the physical. The dragon family offered the emotional support crucial for their recovery. They listened patiently to their stories of loss, validated their feelings, and reassured them that their grief was valid, their pain understandable. They celebrated small victories, offering gentle encouragement during setbacks. The warmth of their acceptance, the strength of their empathy, fostered a profound sense of belonging. They were no longer isolated in their grief, but surrounded by love and understanding. The journey was not without its difficulties. The siblings still faced nightmares, flashbacks, and periods of intense sadness. But now, instead of isolation, they had each other and Lyra's family. They found strength in their shared experiences, learned to support each other, and gradually rebuilt their lives brick by brick. They learned to express their emotions, to acknowledge their grief, and to seek comfort in the presence of those who cared. One evening, huddled around a crackling fire in Lyra's cavern, Alara and Finn shared a quiet moment of reflection. The glowing fungi cast an enchanting light on their faces, illuminating the quiet strength that had blossomed within them. They looked at each other, a silent acknowledgement of the transformative power of friendship and shared healing. The wounds of the past were still visible, scars etched on their hearts, but they were no longer gaping chasms of despair. They were slowly, steadily healing, guided by the compassion and support of an unlikely family. The path to healing was long and arduous, but with each passing day, the siblings felt a little stronger, a little more resilient, and filled with a growing sense of hope for the future. The dragon's family, the unexpected haven they had found in the heart of the mountain, had shown them that even in the darkest of times, hope and healing are possible. The darkness of the cavern now seemed less menacing, the glow of their newfound friendship casting a light on their future, paving their path forward with resilience, understanding, and hope. Their journey had just begun, and they knew that the path ahead would continue to offer unexpected challenges, but with their newfound friends and the strength born from shared trauma, they were ready to face whatever came next. Their healing journey was a testament to the power of compassion, the healing embrace of unexpected friendships, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The days melted into weeks, each one a tapestry woven with the threads of shared laughter, whispered secrets, and the comforting silence of companionship. Alara and Finn, initially hesitant, found themselves drawn into the heart of the dragon family. They learned the subtle nuances of dragon communication, the flick of a tail, the tilt of a head, the rhythmic beat of a wing against the cavern wall. Lyra, the eldest, patiently translated, bridging the gap between their different worlds. They discovered the dragons had a rich oral history, passed down through generations. Lyra's younger siblings, before their tragic deaths, had been renowned storytellers, their narratives filled with fantastical creatures, ancient prophecies, and epic battles between good and evil. They recounted tales of courageous heroes, wise elders, and mischievous sprites, each story a vibrant testament to their culture and heritage. Alara and Finn, captivated, found themselves participating, adding their own human tales to the mix, their voices intertwining with the melodic rumble of the dragon's speech. The dragons, in turn, shared stories of their own lives, their struggles, and their triumphs. They spoke of the Great Blight, not as a distant, impersonal event, but as a personal tragedy that had ripped through their family, leaving behind a void that echoed with loss and grief. They described their ancestors, their valiant efforts to protect the land and its creatures, and the sacrifices they had made to maintain balance and harmony. Their stories weren't just narratives, they were lessons, steeped in the wisdom of generations past, offering insights into the interconnectedness of all living things. One evening, nestled amongst the glowing fungi, Lyra shared a legend of a powerful amulet, hidden deep within the mountain, believed to hold the power to heal the blighted land. The amulet, she explained, was passed down through generations of their family, a symbol of hope and protection. Its power, however, could only be unleashed by a pure heart, one untouched by malice or vengeance. This legend became a focus, a shared goal that strengthened their bond. The quest for the amulet, though fraught with danger, offered a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. Learning to communicate wasn't just about language, it was about understanding unspoken emotions. Ilara, watching the young dragons interact, observed their playful squabbles, their comforting cuddles, their shared meals. They expressed affection through gentle nudges, playful nips, and the rhythmic rubbing of their heads against each other. They weren't afraid to show vulnerability, to express sadness, anger, or joy. This openness contrasted sharply with the reserved nature of Alara and Finn's human society, and their emotional expression was a balm to the siblings' hearts. Finn, ever the practical one, started assisting with the day-to-day tasks of the dragon family. He helped cultivate the bioluminescent fungi, learning their delicate needs and the importance of maintaining their ecosystem. He learned to identify various herbs and plants, their medicinal properties, and how to prepare infusions and poultices, collaborating with the dragons on healing balms for both themselves and the injured wildlife they encountered. He found a quiet satisfaction in this work, a sense of purpose that had been missing since his father's death. His hands, once clenched tight in fear, now moved with a newfound confidence and grace. Alara, initially shy, found her voice in the dragon's welcoming embrace. She shared her love of storytelling, crafting elaborate tales for the young dragons, her imagination blossoming in the fertile ground of their acceptance. She discovered a hidden talent for mimicking the sounds of nature, using her voice to imitate the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves, and the gentle hum of the wind. Her laughter, once a rare sound, became a familiar melody in the cavern, echoing amongst the stalactites and crystal formations. The dragons introduced them to their customs and traditions. They participated in ceremonies honoring the earth, the sun, and the stars, expressing gratitude for the abundance of life and acknowledging the interconnectedness of all living things. They learned the importance of respecting the balance of nature, of living in harmony with the world around them, a lesson deeply resonant after the devastation of the Blight. Their participation was less about mimicking and more about absorbing their philosophy of life. One day, a young emerald dragon named Zephyr presented Alara with a small, intricately carved wooden bird. It was a simple gift, but its beauty was extraordinary. The detail was exquisite, the wood polished to a smooth sheen. It spoke volumes about the patience and skill of the young dragon, the amount of love and effort invested. Alara treasured it, a tangible symbol of her newfound friendship with the dragon family. This small action underscored the development of their connection. No longer strangers, but friends connected by mutual respect, understanding, and shared experience. Through these shared experiences, Alara and Finn discovered a strength they never knew they possessed. The grief they carried was still present, a constant companion, but it no longer defined them. They learned to navigate their sadness, to accept their loss, and to find joy in the present moment. The dragon family, their unexpected saviors, had shown them the power of resilience, the importance of compassion, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The cave, once a place of fear and uncertainty, had become their sanctuary, a haven where they could heal, grow, and forge bonds that would last a lifetime. As the weeks turned into months, the siblings began to feel a growing sense of responsibility towards the blighted land and the restoration of harmony to their world. They embarked on small journeys beyond the cavern, using their newfound knowledge to help heal the land, planting saplings, tending to injured animals, and sharing the dragon's healing remedies with the few survivors they encountered. Each small act of kindness, each step towards healing, was a testament to their transformation, a reflection of their burgeoning connection with the dragon family and their deep commitment to the world around them. They understood that healing the land was intrinsically linked to healing themselves. The journey was long and the challenges were numerous, but with every sunrise, they felt a renewed sense of purpose and a strengthened resolve. Their connection to Lyra and her family provided them with unwavering support and hope for a brighter future. The warmth of their acceptance, their patience, their quiet strength had become the foundation upon which they rebuilt their lives. They had found a family, not of blood, but of shared experience, compassion, and the unwavering power of friendship. The initial days of tentative interaction gave way to a deeper understanding, a slow, deliberate dance of trust. It wasn't a sudden leap of faith, but a cautious inching forward, a hesitant reaching out. Alara, initially wary of the dragon's imposing size and otherworldly appearance, found herself drawn to their gentle nature. Lyra, the eldest, proved to be a patient teacher, her words soft yet firm, her actions reassuring. She explained their customs, their history, their inherent respect for the balance of nature, a perspective vastly different from the anthropocentric views Ilara had grown up with. Finn, ever the pragmatist, focused on the practical aspects of their coexistence. He observed how the dragons managed their environment, their meticulous care for the bioluminescent fungi that illuminated their cavern home. He noted their careful harvesting of medicinal herbs, their skillful preparation of healing balms, their gentle tending of injured wildlife. His inherent skepticism slowly eroded as he witnessed the dragon's unwavering commitment to healing and preservation. He learned to trust their expertise, to rely on their knowledge, and to appreciate their dedication to their fragile ecosystem. He even found himself participating in their cultivation practices, his once calloused hands carefully tending the delicate fungi, a testament to his growing acceptance and burgeoning friendship. Their trust wasn't solely built on practical interactions. It bloomed amidst shared laughter and whispered secrets. They discovered a shared love for storytelling, their narratives intertwining, creating a rich tapestry of human and dragon lore. Alara, with her vivid imagination, captivated the young dragons with tales of faraway lands, courageous heroes, and mischievous sprites. The dragons, in turn, shared their ancient legends, epic sagas of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring power of family. These shared stories became a bridge, connecting their worlds, fostering understanding, and nurturing a sense of belonging. One evening, nestled amongst the glowing fungi, Lyra recounted a tale of a mischievous sprite who had once lived in their cave. This sprite, she explained, had a penchant for playing tricks, often misplacing items or altering the patterns of the glowing fungi. Yet, despite its pranks, the sprite was fundamentally kind, often leaving small gifts for the dragons or warning them of impending danger. Lyra's storytelling brought the sprite to life, its playful antics creating an atmosphere of warmth and shared mirth. Alara, captivated by the story, shared a human tale of a mischievous imp who had similarly tested the patience of a village, only to later save the village from a devastating fire. The similarities in the stories, despite their different cultures, highlighted the universal themes of mischief and redemption. The dragon's unconventional way of life, initially a source of apprehension, became a source of comfort. Their acceptance of differences, their lack of prejudice, their emphasis on emotional honesty were a stark contrast to the rigid social structures of the human world Alara and Finn had left behind. The dragon's open displays of affection, the gentle nudges, the playful nips, the comforting head rubs, were initially shocking to the siblings. In their human society, such overt displays of emotion were rare, often deemed inappropriate or overly sentimental. However, witnessing the dragon's unabashed expression of love, sadness, anger, and joy, Alara and Finn began to shed their own emotional inhibitions. They learned to embrace their vulnerability, to express their grief openly, without shame or self-consciousness. The dragons didn't judge their tears, they offered comfort, empathy, and understanding. They didn't shy away from their own emotions. Grief over their lost siblings was ever present, a constant reminder of their tragedy, but it didn't consume them. They had found a way to coexist with their pain, to find joy amidst the sorrow. This acceptance, this unyielding embrace of vulnerability, was transformative for Alara and Finn. It allowed them to heal, to reconcile with their past, and to move forward with hope and resilience. One day, Zephyr, the young emerald dragon, gifted Alara a tiny, intricately carved wooden flower. The detail was breathtaking, each petal perfectly formed, each vein delicately rendered. It wasn't just a gift, it was a testament to Zephyr's skill, patience, and affection. Alara cherished the flower, wearing it around her neck, a tangible symbol of her newfound friendship with the dragon family. This small act of kindness, this unassuming gift, spoke volumes about the growth of their relationship, a transformation from apprehension and fear to trust and affection. It was a symbol of their shared journey, their mutual respect, and the enduring bond they had forged. This bond deepened as they shared meals, stories, and experiences. The siblings learned to appreciate the dragon's unique perspective, their deep connection to the natural world, their reverence for the balance of life. They participated in their ceremonies, honoring the earth, the sun, and the stars, experiencing firsthand the dragon's profound connection to their environment. Their participation was not about mimicking, but about embracing a new philosophy, one that prioritized harmony, interconnectedness, and respect. Their acceptance of the dragon's ways was a testament to their own inner growth. The initial fear and prejudice, the ingrained biases, were gradually replaced by understanding, compassion, and respect. The dragons had not only provided shelter and support, they had offered a lesson in living, a philosophy that embraced vulnerability, acknowledged loss, and celebrated life's small joys. The siblings found themselves adapting, learning to trust their instincts, to embrace spontaneity, to allow themselves to feel. The transformative power of trust was evident in their growing confidence. The siblings, once hesitant and withdrawn, began to emerge from their shells. Alara's laughter, once a rare sound, now echoed through the cavern, a testament to her newfound joy and inner peace. Finn's hands, once clenched in fear, now moved with a practiced grace, tending the fungi with a quiet satisfaction. They found strength in their newfound friendship, resilience in their shared experience, and a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. The dragons, their unexpected saviors, had not only healed their wounds, they had given them the gift of trust, and in doing so, had helped them rediscover their own inherent worth. Their journey of trust was far from over, but the path ahead, illuminated by the glowing fungi and warmed by the acceptance of their newfound family, seemed filled with promise and hope. Nestled amongst the bioluminescent fungi, a warmth spread beyond the comforting glow. It was a warmth born of shared dreams, of a future painted not in shades of vengeance, but in the vibrant hues of peace and understanding. Alara, gazing at the intricate patterns cast by the fungi, felt a surge of hope she hadn't experienced since the tragedy that had shattered their lives. Finn, his gaze fixed on the distant cave opening, mirrored her sentiment, a flicker of determination replacing the haunted look that had clung to him for so long. Their initial fear of the dragons, the instinctive distrust bred by generations of fear-mongering tales, had vanished, replaced by a profound respect and burgeoning affection. The dragons, with their gentle nature and unwavering acceptance, had shown them a different path, a path away from the cycle of hatred and toward a future where humans and dragons could coexist, not as adversaries, but as allies. "We can't stay here forever," Alara said softly, breaking the comfortable silence. Her voice, though quiet, carried a strength that surprised even herself. The trauma they'd endured had hardened her, yet the dragon's compassion had softened the edges, revealing a resilience she hadn't known she possessed. "We need to find a way to share what we've learned." Finn nodded, his gaze unwavering. "The dragons have shown us a way of life that values harmony and understanding. We have to share that with others. If we can bridge the gap between our worlds, we can prevent more needless conflict, more suffering." He paused, then added, his voice laced with a quiet resolve, "We have to try." Their plan was audacious, perhaps even foolhardy in the eyes of others. They would establish communication with other human settlements, not as conquerors or emissaries of some grand empire, but as ambassadors of peace, bearing witness to a harmonious coexistence between humans and dragons. They would share their story, their journey from fear to acceptance, from vengeance to understanding. They would prove that differences weren't necessarily a cause for conflict, that peace was achievable even in the face of deep-seated prejudices. This wasn't just a mission, it was a testament to the transformative power of trust. The dragons, they realized, had not simply offered them shelter. They had given them a new perspective, a new purpose. They had shown them that even the most deeply ingrained fears could be overcome with understanding and compassion. The dragons had shown them a path to forgiveness, not only of their past, but also of those who had perpetuated the cycle of fear and conflict. Alara and Finn knew the road ahead would be challenging. They faced the skepticism, perhaps even outright hostility, of a human society steeped in ancient prejudices. They would encounter those who clung to old ways, those who refused to believe that humans and dragons could ever coexist peacefully. But they were armed with more than just their newfound hope and the support of the dragons. They carried the weight of their past experiences, the strength forged in the fires of loss and grief, and a profound conviction that a better future was possible. Their first step was preparing the dragons for the journey ahead. They had to ensure that the dragons, particularly Lyra, understood the potential risks involved and were comfortable with the idea of venturing into the human world. It wasn't just a matter of physical safety. They had to be prepared for the emotional challenges, the potential for misunderstanding and hostility. Lyra, with her wisdom and unwavering support, embraced the idea with both excitement and caution. She understood the inherent risks, but also the profound potential for positive change. She knew that the dragon's story had the power to reshape perceptions, to break down barriers, to create a future where both species could thrive. She spent hours instructing Alara and Finn on how to communicate with other dragons, sharing ancient dragon language and cultural nuances. The dragon's unique communication system, a blend of vocalizations, body language, and subtle pheromonal cues, presented a significant hurdle. Lyra painstakingly taught Alara and Finn to interpret these cues, demonstrating how a slight shift in posture or a specific vocalization could convey a wide range of emotions and intentions. Finn, with his innate pragmatism, focused on mastering the practical aspects, while Alara, drawing on her creative abilities, learned to understand the nuances of dragon communication, intuitively grasping the emotional undercurrents. They also spent time preparing for the logistical challenges, The journey to other human settlements would be long and arduous, requiring careful planning and resourcefulness. They discussed various options, weighing the risks and benefits of different routes, ultimately deciding on a path that minimized exposure to potential dangers and maximized their chances of reaching their destination safely. Their preparations also involved creating a narrative that would resonate with other human settlements, a story that would cut through the centuries-old prejudices and foster empathy and understanding. They knew they couldn't simply force their message upon others. They had to find a way to connect with them on an emotional level. They decided to use storytelling as their primary tool, drawing on both human and dragon lore to create a powerful narrative that would capture the imagination and hearts of their audience. Alara, with her vivid imagination and storytelling prowess, created a captivating tale of friendship, resilience, and the importance of embracing differences. She wove together stories of human courage and dragon wisdom, creating a narrative that emphasized the shared values of both species. Finn, with his keen observational skills, provided the factual framework, documenting their journey, their encounters with the dragons, and the transformations they had undergone. Their shared narrative wasn't just a story, it was a testament to their journey, a testament to the transformative power of trust and the enduring hope for a shared future. It was a story they would share with the human world, a beacon of hope in a world steeped in conflict and prejudice. They were not simply seeking to establish communication, they were seeking to build bridges, to forge a new path towards a future where humans and dragons could coexist, not in fear or hostility, but in mutual respect, understanding, and harmony. Their journey would be fraught with challenges, filled with uncertainties, but the warmth of their newfound friendship, the strength of their shared vision, and the unwavering support of the dragons gave them the courage to face whatever lay ahead. They were embarking on a journey of hope, a journey towards a shared future, a future where differences were celebrated, not condemned, and where peace replaced the ancient cycle of fear and hatred. It was a daunting task, yet one they embraced with a quiet determination, a shared belief in the power of forgiveness, compassion, and the enduring strength of unexpected friendships. The glow of the bioluminescent fungi, now a symbol of their shared hope, illuminated their path into the unknown, beckoning them towards a future where humanity and dragons could finally coexist in harmony. The future, they believed, held the promise of a new dawn, a dawn where the ancient prejudices of their worlds would finally fade, giving way to a future where humans and dragons would stand together, side by side. The journey was long, but their hope, fueled by the warmth of their unexpected family, burned bright. The trek back to Oakhaven was arduous. The familiar sights, the gnarled oak trees that gave the village its name, the smoke curling lazily from chimneys, the faint scent of wood smoke and baking bread, should have brought comfort, but Alara and Finn felt a knot of apprehension tighten in their chests. They carried the weight of their revelation, the fragile hope of a new dawn, and the fear that their message might be met with scorn and rejection. Lyra, majestic and watchful, soared above them, her shadow a comforting presence against the uncertain landscape. As they approached the village limits, the initial reaction was one of stark disbelief. A collective gasp rippled through the assembled villagers, a wave of hushed whispers and pointed fingers replacing the usual afternoon bustle. The years of ingrained fear, the cautionary tales passed down through generations, were etched on their faces, a mixture of suspicion, anger, and primal fear. Several men clutched their hunting spears, their eyes narrowed, ready for a confrontation. Old Man Hemlock, the village elder, his face a roadmap of wrinkles etched by time and worry, stepped forward. His voice, though wavering, carried an authority born of years of leadership. Alara, Finn, what is the meaning of this? His gaze shifted to Lyra, circling her with apprehension before returning to the siblings. His voice was a low, tense hum, devoid of the usual warmth. Alara, drawing on the courage she had found amidst the dragons, stepped forward, her voice clear and steady, despite the tremor in her hands. We have something important to share, something that will change everything you believe. Finn stood beside her, his usually jovial expression replaced by a determined seriousness. He placed a reassuring hand on Alara's arm, a silent gesture of support. Their tale unfolded slowly, cautiously. They began with the initial fear, the near-death experiences, the desperate flight into the unknown. They described the cavern, its breathtaking beauty, the bioluminescent fungi casting an ethereal glow. But the heart of their story was the dragons, Lyra, majestic and wise, and the others, gentle and accepting. They spoke of their newfound friendship, of shared meals under the glow of the fungi, of quiet evenings spent listening to Lyra's ancient tales. They spoke of the dragons' compassion, their patience, their willingness to bridge the chasm of fear that had separated humans and dragons for centuries. The villagers listened, their initial hostility slowly giving way to a stunned silence. The images Alara painted, vivid and evocative, began to chip away at the stone wall of fear that had surrounded them for so long. Finn's pragmatic descriptions, detailed and factual, grounded the fantastical elements of their story, lending it a credibility that surprised even themselves. They spoke of the dragon's communication system, their unique blend of vocalizations and subtle cues, illustrating their points with gestures and sounds that Lyra echoed from her vantage point in the sky. The transformation was gradual, subtle at first. The tightly clenched fists relaxed, the hunting spears lowered slightly. Whispers of disbelief turned to murmurs of curiosity, then to hesitant questions. A small child, emboldened by the hush that had fallen over the crowd, approached Lyra, his eyes wide with wonder. He extended a tentative hand, and Lyra, with an understanding that seemed to transcend language, lowered her massive head, allowing the child to stroke her scales. It was a pivotal moment. The touch, innocent and pure, shattered the barrier of fear that had separated two worlds. The sight of the child, unafraid, unburdened by the ingrained prejudices of generations, thawed the hearts of the onlookers. The child's act of bravery sparked a wave of hesitant approaches, a slow, cautious thawing of their distrust. Adults, one by one, approached Lyra, their initial fear replaced by a mixture of awe and curiosity. They hesitantly touched her scales, feeling the smooth, cool texture beneath their fingers, a sensory experience that spoke volumes. As the day wore on, the atmosphere shifted. The initial tension dissolved into a mixture of awe, wonder, and a burgeoning sense of hope. The villagers, overwhelmed by the revelation, began to share their own stories, stories of fear and loss, of generations passed in the shadow of dragon-related tragedies. Alara and Finn listened, offering empathy and understanding. They emphasized that not all dragons were the same, that Lyra and her kin represented a different path, a path of peace and understanding. The healing process was long and arduous, requiring patience, understanding, and the continuous reassurance of Lyra's presence. Alara and Finn used Lyra's stories to dispel the myths and misconceptions that had fueled generations of hatred. They helped the community understand the dragon's complex communication system, their social structures, their rich culture. They spoke of the dragon's inherent goodness, their capacity for empathy and understanding, and their desire for peaceful coexistence. They also addressed the practical aspects of coexistence, proposing solutions to potential conflicts between humans and dragons. They stressed the importance of mutual respect and understanding, emphasizing that both species could thrive if they learned to coexist peacefully. They initiated programs to teach the villagers the basics of dragon communication and encouraged them to foster a sense of mutual respect. By nightfall, a profound shift had taken place. The initial fear and distrust had been replaced by a mixture of curiosity, wonder, and hesitant hope. The villagers, having witnessed the unexpected harmony between the siblings and the dragons, began to question the validity of their ancestral fears. They saw the potential for a future where humans and dragons could coexist peacefully, a future that had once seemed unimaginable. The warmth of the hearth fires that night was matched only by the warmth of a nascent hope, a hope that was beginning to spread through Oakhaven like a wildfire. The next few weeks were a period of profound transformation. Alara and Finn worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between their two worlds. They organized workshops on dragon communication, sharing their knowledge and helping the villagers understand the subtle cues that signaled a dragon's emotions. They taught them about dragon culture, helping them dispel myths and misunderstandings. They also established protocols for interaction, ensuring that both humans and dragons understood each other's boundaries and needs. They created designated areas for dragon interaction, ensuring safety for both species, and implemented a system for reporting any potential conflicts. Their efforts weren't just about fostering understanding, but also about building trust, healing old wounds, and forging a new path towards a shared future. Their work wasn't without its challenges. There were moments of relapse, whispers of doubt, and the occasional flicker of the old fears. But with each challenge, Ilara, Finn, and Lyra remained steadfast in their efforts. They showed the villagers, through their actions and words, that peace and understanding were possible, that differences did not have to be a source of conflict. Lyra's presence remained a constant source of reassurance and healing. Her wisdom, her patience, and her unwavering acceptance helped to bridge the divide, creating a space where fear and suspicion could gradually give way to trust and understanding. The dragons, initially viewed with trepidation, became symbols of hope and transformation, ushering in a new era of peaceful coexistence. The change wasn't immediate, nor was it easy. It was a process, a journey filled with fits and starts, with moments of doubt and uncertainty. But the seeds of change had been sown, and with Ilara and Finn's unwavering commitment and Lyra's guiding presence, a new dawn was breaking over Oakhaven, a dawn where humans and dragons could finally walk side by side in harmony. The ancient cycle of fear and hatred was slowly, but surely, being replaced by a new era of peace and understanding, a testament to the enduring power of trust, forgiveness, and the remarkable strength of unexpected friendships. The sun, a benevolent eye in the cerulean sky, cast a warm glow on Oakhaven. Gone were the shadows of fear, replaced by a vibrant tapestry of color and sound. The village square, usually a space of quiet routine, pulsed with life, a kaleidoscope of activity celebrating a new dawn. Banners, woven with vibrant threads depicting dragons and humans intertwined in a dance of peace, fluttered in the gentle breeze. The air, thick with the aroma of roasting meats and spiced bread, carried the joyous melodies of fiddles, flutes, and drums. This wasn't just any celebration, it was a festival of reconciliation, a testament to the remarkable transformation that had swept through Oakhaven. It honored those lost in the shadow of the ancient fear, acknowledging their suffering while celebrating the triumph of hope over despair. Tables laden with food overflowed with rustic bounty, plump roasted chickens, hearty loaves of bread, overflowing bowls of stewed vegetables, and sweet honey cakes. Villagers, their faces alight with joy and relief, shared meals with one another, their laughter echoing through the square. Children, their eyes sparkling with wonder, chased butterflies amidst a riot of colorful wildflowers that had sprung up, as if mirroring the newfound bloom of hope in their hearts. Ilara and Finn, the catalysts of this remarkable change, stood near the center of the festivities, their hearts brimming with a bittersweet mix of joy and sorrow. They watched as villagers, once gripped by fear, now embraced one another, their faces etched with a newfound camaraderie. Lyra, majestic and serene, perched atop the gnarled oak tree that dominated the square, her presence a silent guardian, a comforting beacon in the heart of the celebration. Her emerald eyes, reflecting the vibrant scene below, held a wisdom that transcended time and generations. Old Man Hemlock, his weathered face softened by a rare smile, approached the siblings. "This," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "is more than just a feast. It's a testament to your courage, your unwavering belief in a better future. You've shown us that even the deepest rooted fears can be overcome with understanding and compassion." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the jubilant crowd. "We were blind, consumed by ancient tales, by the shadows of our past. You opened our eyes to the light, to the possibility of peace." Ilara, her heart swelling with emotion, responded, "It wasn't just us. It was Lyra, her kindness, her patience, her willingness to bridge the gap between our worlds. It was the bravery of that little child who first dared to touch her scale, a single act that broke the chains of fear that had bound us for so long. Finn, ever practical, added, "It's also the willingness of everyone here to learn, to let go of their preconceived notions, to embrace a future where humans and dragons can coexist. It's a testament to the power of shared stories, of understanding each other's perspectives, of finding common ground." The celebration continued into the twilight hours. Music filled the air, its vibrant rhythms weaving a tapestry of hope and unity. Villagers danced hand in hand, their steps mirroring the harmony that had blossomed between two worlds. The children, uninhibited by the fears of their elders, played games with each other, their laughter a joyful symphony amidst the swirling melodies. Even the shyest villagers, those who had initially clung to their fears, joined in the festivities, their hesitant smiles a testament to the healing power of community and forgiveness. As the stars began to paint the night sky, a bonfire was lit, its flames reaching towards the heavens, symbolizing the burning away of ancient hatreds. Around the fire, villagers shared stories of their own personal transformations, their words imbued with a sense of gratitude and newfound hope. They spoke of the fear they once felt, the prejudices they had held, and the cathartic process of letting go. Their tales were intertwined with those of Alara and Finn, creating a rich tapestry of shared experience. One elderly woman, her face etched with the wisdom of years, recounted a tale passed down through generations, a story of a dragon that had saved her ancestors from a devastating flood. The tale, once a source of fear, was now seen in a new light, a testament to the inherent goodness that could exist within the hearts of both humans and dragons. The recounting of such stories created a space for both individual healing and collective growth, further binding the community through their shared past and their vision of a unified future. Lyra, her silhouette a majestic shadow against the flickering flames, joined in the storytelling. Using a unique blend of vocalizations and subtle gestures, she shared ancient dragon tales, stories of wisdom, courage, and the importance of harmony. Her narrative spoke of the dragon's history, their culture, and their connection to the land, helping to dispel misconceptions and create a foundation for greater understanding and cooperation. The night culminated in a breathtaking display of dragonfire. Several dragons, Lyra among them, gracefully descended from the heavens, their movements fluid and elegant. They danced in the night sky, their fiery breath creating intricate patterns against the darkness, weaving a mesmerizing spectacle of light and color that illuminated the faces of the awestruck villagers. It was a breathtaking spectacle, a symbol of the harmony achieved, a testament to the power of friendship and unity. As the celebration wound down, a profound sense of peace settled over Oakhaven. The air was thick with a tangible sense of hope, of a future where humans and dragons could walk hand in hand in harmony. The fires had been extinguished and the music had subsided, but the glow of newfound unity continued to radiate through the village long into the night. The celebration wasn't just an event, it was the beginning of a new chapter, a future where the echoes of ancient fears were replaced by the vibrant melodies of unity, understanding, and the beautiful, unexpected friendship between two worlds. The seeds of peace had been sown, and they were blossoming with a strength and beauty that no one could have ever imagined. The dawn was indeed new, and it held the promise of an enduring peace built on the foundations of trust, forgiveness, and the remarkable bond formed between humans and dragons. The embers of the bonfire, now reduced to glowing coals, cast a warm, flickering light on Alara and Finn's faces as they sat amidst the quiet remnants of the festival. The vibrant energy of the celebration had subsided, replaced by a peaceful stillness that spoke volumes of the transformation Oakhaven had undergone. Yet the siblings knew this was only the beginning. The bridges had been built, but they needed constant tending, constant nurturing to ensure their enduring strength. Alara, ever the pragmatist, began to sketch plans in the dirt with a twig. "We need a structured approach," she declared, her voice low and thoughtful. "A system of communication, a framework for resolving disputes before they escalate into conflict. We can't rely solely on Lyra's goodwill. She can't be everywhere at once." Finn, ever the optimist, nodded in agreement. "We need a council," he suggested. a council composed of both humans and dragons, representing the diverse perspectives of both communities. It would be a forum for discussion, a space where concerns could be aired and solutions could be collaboratively developed. This way, everyone has a voice and everyone feels heard. Alara added, and we need to establish clear guidelines, a set of common rules that both humans and dragons can agree to abide by. Rules regarding airspace, foraging grounds, and most importantly, respect for each other's territories and customs. This isn't about forcing assimilation, it's about finding ways to coexist respectfully within a shared environment. Over the next few weeks, Alara and Finn immersed themselves in the painstaking task of building this framework for peaceful coexistence. They started by organizing smaller meetings, bringing together key figures from both communities, village elders, dragon leaders, and representatives from younger generations. These gatherings weren't grand pronouncements, but rather focused conversations, built on trust and a shared commitment to finding solutions. One of the first challenges they faced was overcoming the deeply ingrained mistrust that still lingered in certain pockets of the community. Some older villagers, despite the celebration, clung to their fears, recounting cautionary tales passed down through generations. Others remained skeptical of the dragon's intentions, questioning whether this newfound peace was a temporary respite or a genuine shift in attitudes. Alara and Finn patiently addressed these concerns, emphasizing the importance of empathy and understanding. They encouraged villagers to share their fears and anxieties, creating a safe space where honest conversations could take place, free from judgment or ridicule. They shared personal anecdotes of their encounters with Lyra, showcasing the dragon's gentle nature and her unwavering commitment to peace. The siblings also worked diligently to improve communication. They learned to decipher some of Lyra's complex vocalizations, and with Lyra's help, they developed a rudimentary system of visual signals, using flags and smoke signals to relay messages over long distances. This was crucial, as the dragons were not always close enough to the village to communicate directly. They were not just bridging the divide between people and dragons, they were establishing a common language of trust. Creating a shared calendar of events was pivotal. They established days when specific regions would be reserved for dragon flights or foraging, and others for human activities such as farming and woodcutting. This created a sense of order and respect for each other's spaces. It also helped to prevent accidental incursions that could lead to conflict. To ensure the long-term success of their initiative, Alara and Finn began to educate the younger generations. They established a school where children from both communities learned together, sharing stories, games, and cultural traditions. They emphasized the importance of friendship, tolerance, and mutual respect. The children, less burdened by the prejudices of their elders, quickly embraced this new era of understanding, becoming ambassadors of peace within their respective communities. The council, finally established, proved to be an invaluable tool in resolving disputes and fostering cooperation. Initially, discussions were tense, with disagreements arising over resource allocation and territorial boundaries. However, through careful mediation, the council members learned to navigate their differences, finding common ground and forging compromises that benefited both humans and dragons. They established a system of arbitration for resolving conflicts, with representatives from both communities acting as impartial mediators. The process was designed to be fair and transparent, ensuring that all voices were heard and all concerns were addressed. Over time, the council became more than a conflict resolution mechanism. It evolved into a platform for collaboration. Members began to discuss joint projects, such as building shared infrastructure, developing sustainable agricultural practices, and protecting the environment. They discovered that by working together, they could achieve far more than they could ever accomplish alone. The success of the council was a testament to the effectiveness of their approach. The council's accomplishments, large and small, were celebrated by both communities. This was not just a superficial peace. It was a deeply rooted, sustainable harmony that fostered unity in a way that seemed impossible only months before. The siblings found immense satisfaction in their work. The transformation of Oakhaven was not just a victory for them, but for everyone who had embraced the dream of peaceful coexistence. They had shown that even the deepest-rooted prejudices could be overcome with patience, perseverance, and a genuine commitment to understanding. The bridges they built weren't just physical structures, they were bridges of trust, friendship, and mutual respect, a testament to the power of collaboration and the enduring strength of hope. The dawn was indeed new, not just for Oakhaven, but for all who dared to dream of a world where humans and dragons could walk hand in hand. The sun rose higher each day, bathing their newfound unity in the warm, comforting glow of a brighter, more hopeful future. The final stone was set, not with mortar and chisel, but with the quiet satisfaction of a promise kept. Alara, her face smudged with dust and sweat, stepped back to admire the newly erected memorial, a simple stone cairn overlooking the valley, etched with the names of their parents and a single, powerful word, harmony. Beside her, Finn, his usually unruly hair neatly braided, offered a small, tired smile. The weight of their undertaking, the relentless pressure of forging peace between two warring factions, had etched lines onto their young faces, but their eyes shone with a light that spoke of profound accomplishment and hard-won wisdom. They had promised their parents a future free from the shadow of conflict, a future where humans and dragons could coexist, not as adversaries, but as equals. And they had done it. It wasn't a magical overnight transformation. It was a slow, painstaking process, filled with setbacks, compromises, and moments of profound doubt. Yet, here they stood, at the culmination of their journey, a testament to their resilience, their unwavering commitment, and the power of shared hope. The memorial itself was more than just a monument. It was a symbol of their metamorphosis. The rough, unpolished stones represented the harsh realities they had faced, the struggles they had overcome. The carefully balanced structure symbolized the delicate balance they had painstakingly created between two vastly different cultures. And the single word, harmony, encapsulated the essence of their achievement, a profound and lasting peace born not from conquest, but from understanding and mutual respect. They remembered the countless hours spent mediating disputes, patiently listening to grievances, and tirelessly working to bridge the chasm of mistrust that had separated humans and dragons for generations. They remembered the tense council meetings, the heated debates, the moments when it seemed their efforts were in vain. They remembered the countless sleepless nights, fueled by the sheer determination to honor their parents' legacy. But they also remembered the small victories, the breakthroughs, the moments when they saw the seeds of understanding take root. They remembered the shy smiles of children from both communities playing together, the shared laughter that echoed through the valley, the quiet trust that bloomed between individuals who once saw each other as enemies. They remembered the day a young dragon, hesitant at first, gently nudged Alara's hand with its snout, a gesture of trust that spoke volumes. The transformation of Oakhaven wasn't solely about the creation of a council or the establishment of a shared calendar. It was about a fundamental shift in perspective, a collective acceptance of difference, and the understanding that peace wasn't the absence of conflict, but the presence of empathy and shared purpose. It was about building bridges, not just between humans and dragons, but between hearts and minds, shattering the walls of fear and prejudice that had stood for centuries. Their parents had taught them that true strength wasn't about wielding power, but about wielding compassion. They had taught them that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting, but about understanding, and that understanding was the cornerstone of true reconciliation. And these lessons, etched into their hearts, had guided them through the darkest hours, providing the strength and resilience to navigate the treacherous path toward peace. Now, standing at the summit of their achievement, they felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons learned, for the challenges overcome, for the unexpected friendships forged, and for the unwavering support of their community. They realized that the journey had not only changed Oakhaven, but had also irrevocably transformed them. They had grown from naive siblings burdened by grief into wise young adults, equipped with the skills and maturity to navigate the complexities of a diverse and interconnected world. The following weeks were a whirlwind of celebratory gatherings, each a testament to the enduring power of unity and reconciliation. The villagers, their faces reflecting a newfound joy and optimism. Organized festivals, feasts, and communal gatherings, each event a unique expression of their gratitude. The dragons, initially cautious, had become active participants in the celebrations, their powerful forms adding a majestic touch to the festivities. The air buzzed with a palpable energy, a joyous blend of human and dragon cultures, a harmony once deemed impossible. Alara and Finn, now seen as pillars of their community, played a key role in shaping the future of Oakhaven. They established a mentorship program, guiding younger generations in the art of peaceful conflict resolution, sharing their experiences and lessons learned. They created a vibrant cultural exchange program, facilitating the sharing of knowledge, traditions, and customs between both communities. And they continued to lead the council, ensuring its continued effectiveness and adaptability, ensuring it became a bastion of mutual understanding and collaborative progress. The council, far from being a static institution, evolved and adapted to meet the changing needs of the community. It tackled issues ranging from sustainable agriculture and environmental protection to economic development and educational reform. It became a forum not just for resolving disputes, but for fostering innovation, creativity, and collaborative problem solving. Alara, ever the pragmatist, focused on developing sustainable systems, ensuring that the resources of Oakhaven were used responsibly and equitably. She initiated projects aimed at improving infrastructure, promoting economic growth, and protecting the environment. Her attention to detail, her meticulous planning, and her unwavering commitment to fairness made her a highly respected leader. Finn, ever the optimist, focused on fostering connections, nurturing relationships, and promoting a sense of shared identity. He spearheaded initiatives aimed at bridging the cultural divides between humans and dragons, encouraging mutual understanding and celebrating the unique richness of both cultures. His infectious enthusiasm, his unwavering belief in the power of friendship, and his remarkable ability to connect with people from all walks of life made him an invaluable leader. Years later, as they stood together, overlooking the now thriving valley, a landscape transformed by their efforts, they saw not just a community at peace, but a testament to their promise kept. They had not just healed a rift between humans and dragons, but they had healed a part of themselves, emerging stronger, wiser, and deeply connected to their community and each other. The dawn was indeed new, not just for Oakhaven, but for Alara and Finn, who had found their own unique form of harmony in the fulfillment of their promise. They had honored their parents' memory, and in doing so, they had created a legacy far greater than they could have ever imagined, a legacy of peace, understanding, and enduring hope. Their journey had been challenging, demanding, and at times overwhelming. But looking at the vibrant valley, they knew without a doubt that every sacrifice, every challenge, every moment of doubt was worth it. The sun continued to rise, casting its golden light on their shared achievement, a testament to the power of perseverance, the beauty of forgiveness, and the enduring strength of a promise kept. Years passed. The once divided valley blossomed into a vibrant, harmonious community where humans and dragons coexisted as equals. The bond forged between Alara, Finn, and the dragons stood as a testament to the power of friendship, understanding, and the unwavering belief in the possibility of peace. Their legacy extended beyond their own time, shaping future generations and inspiring others to seek peace and understanding, not through dominance, but through genuine connection. Their enduring friendship served as a beacon of hope, a shining example of the transformative power of collaboration, empathy, and mutual respect. The new dawn wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a change of heart, a testament to their enduring friendship and the remarkable transformation of Oakhaven. The crisp mountain air bit at Alara's cheeks as she perched atop Zephyr's broad back, the wind whipping through her hair. Below, the valley of Oakhaven shimmered, a patchwork quilt of emerald fields and silver streams, a testament to the unlikely alliance between humans and dragons. Beside her, Finn, his laughter echoing in the wind, gripped Zephyr's scales, his eyes alight with excitement. The past year had been a whirlwind of change, a constant stream of challenges overcome, and bonds forged in the fires of adversity. Yet, the most significant change had been the profound shift in their relationship with the dragons. It was no longer a tentative truce, but a genuine, blossoming friendship. Their first adventure led them to the Whispering Falls, a hidden cascade tucked away in a remote corner of the Dragon Mountains. Legend spoke of the fall's healing properties, a secret whispered only among the oldest dragons. Old Ignis, his scales gleaming like polished obsidian, had entrusted them with a task: to retrieve a rare luminescent moss that only grew behind the falls, a moss said to possess remarkable healing properties. The journey was fraught with peril, navigating treacherous cliffs and dodging mischievous mountain sprites. But their combined skills, Alara's sharp intellect and strategic thinking, Finn's agile body and playful charm, and Zephyr's aerial prowess, proved an unbeatable combination. They navigated narrow gorges, rappelled down sheer rock faces, and even outsmarted a grumpy griffin guarding a vital passageway, Finn's quick wit and storytelling prowess diverting the creature's attention while Alara and Zephyr carefully skirted around it. The luminescent moss, a vibrant emerald green that glowed with an ethereal light, was as wondrous as the legends described. Its soft texture felt cool against their skin, and a subtle energy seemed to emanate from its depths. As they carefully harvested the moss, Alara felt a profound connection to the ancient magic of the mountains, a sense of awe and wonder that filled her with a quiet joy. They returned to Oakhaven triumphant, the healing moss a symbol of their growing friendship and their shared dedication to their community. Their next adventure took them to the Sunken City, an ancient ruin submerged in the heart of a crystal-clear lake. Local legend spoke of a hidden treasure, a legendary artifact said to hold immense magical power. The dragons, intrigued by the tale, willingly shared their knowledge of underwater navigation, guiding Alara and Finn through a labyrinthine network of underwater tunnels. Zephyr, his twilight-colored scales shimmering in the sunlight, filtering through the water, acted as their escort, his sharp eyes vigilant for lurking dangers. The journey was treacherous, navigating through underwater currents, avoiding sharp rocks, and facing the challenges of breathing underwater. But they persevered, spurred on by the thrill of the adventure and the hope of discovering the legendary artifact. The sunken city was a breathtaking spectacle. Statues of ancient beings, half human, half dragon, lined the submerged pathways, their faces etched with expressions of both sorrow and wisdom. The city's architecture, a blend of human and dragon styles, was a marvel of engineering, a testament to a forgotten age of cooperation and coexistence. They eventually discovered the treasure, not a hoard of gold or jewels, but a beautifully carved chest containing ancient scrolls that told the tale of a forgotten alliance between humans and dragons, an alliance shattered by a devastating war centuries ago. The scrolls revealed a shared ancestry, a deep connection between the two species, a connection that had been lost to time until their rediscovery. The scrolls provided valuable insights into the history of both communities, offering a deeper understanding of their shared heritage. The knowledge they gleaned helped to further cement the bond between humans and dragons, fostering a shared understanding of their past and a collective vision for their future. They realized the past mistakes didn't define them. They served as a lesson, a reminder of the importance of understanding, respect, and cooperation. Their discovery served as a reminder that even the most ancient of conflicts can be overcome, provided there is a genuine desire for peace. One day, a message arrived from a distant kingdom, a plea for help. A monstrous beast, a creature of nightmare, was terrorizing the land, devastating villages, and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Alara, Finn, and their dragon allies knew they couldn't stand idly by. They set off on a perilous journey, their determination strengthened by the profound bond they had forged. Their journey led them across vast plains, through dense forests, and over towering mountains. They faced countless obstacles, outwitting cunning traps, battling ferocious beasts, and navigating treacherous landscapes. Their combined strength, courage, and ingenuity proved more than a match for the challenges that stood in their path. The beast, a colossal wyvern with scales like obsidian and eyes like burning coals, was a formidable foe. Its breath was a torrent of fire, its claws sharp as razors, and its ferocity matched only by its immense size. But Alara and Finn, along with their dragon companions, fought with unwavering courage, their combined might and strategic prowess proving to be the beast's downfall. Zephyr's speed and agility provided a vital distraction, allowing Alara to use her knowledge of ancient magic to weaken the creature, while Finn used his resourcefulness to create a series of traps that ultimately ensnared the beast. The victory was hard fought, but their combined efforts ensured the beast's defeat, bringing peace and relief to the terrorized kingdom. Their courage and skill were celebrated throughout the land, but they found their greatest reward in the strength of their friendship and the satisfaction of having done what was right. Throughout their adventures, Alara and Finn found themselves relying more and more on each other. Their shared experiences strengthened their bond, transforming a sibling connection into a profound partnership. They leaned on each other's strengths, compensating for each other's weaknesses, their individual talents complementing one another in perfect harmony. Their relationship evolved beyond simple sibling loyalty. It transformed into a mutual respect, a deep understanding, and a powerful friendship. Their journey, however, wasn't solely focused on grand adventures. It was also about the quiet moments shared, the shared laughter under a starlit sky, the whispered secrets exchanged during long nights spent around crackling fires. It was in these quieter moments that their bond truly deepened. They had both experienced loss, the loss of their parents, the loss of innocence, and these shared experiences forged a profound connection that transcended words. They healed together, supporting each other through the difficult times, finding solace in the strength of their shared experiences. Their adventures brought them not just fame and recognition, but also a renewed sense of purpose. They had found their place in the world, a place where their skills and abilities were valued, a place where they could use their strengths to make a difference. They discovered that true strength wasn't measured in brute force, but in compassion, understanding, and the unwavering belief in the power of friendship. Their stories echoed throughout the land, inspiring others to overcome adversity, to embrace difference, and to seek peace and understanding. They became a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in a world that often seemed shrouded in darkness. The siblings had embarked on new adventures, not just geographical explorations, but journeys of self-discovery and healing. Their past tragedy had not defined them, but had forged an unbreakable bond, one that would continue to shape their futures, ensuring a brighter dawn for Oakhaven and its inhabitants, both human and dragon. The new dawn wasn't simply a promise, it was a vibrant, unfolding the chronicles of Elric Stormweaver, the rise, fall, and rise again of the greatest wizard the realms have ever known. Prologue: The Flame of Stormweaver. There was once a wizard whose name stirred both reverence and fear. Elric Stormweaver, Grand Archmage of the Veiled Spire, protector of the 10 kingdoms, and keeper of the ethereal flame. With eyes like twin comets and a staff forged from the heartwood of the world tree, he commanded the arcane arts with grace, wisdom, and overwhelming power. But Elric was not feared for his might, he was loved for his kindness. He healed the sick, defended the weak, and counseled kings with honesty and humility. While other wizards hoarded power, he gave freely, and that was why they hated him. In the shadows of the realm lurked the Covenant of Black Flame, a cabal of dark sorcerers who despised Elric's compassion. To them, kindness was weakness and power was a weapon to dominate. They plotted in secret, waiting for their moment to strike, and when they did, they tore Elric's world apart. Chapter 1: The Shattering. On the eve of the Celestial Alignment, a rare event amplifying all magic, Elric stood atop the spire, preparing to weave a global ward to shield the kingdoms from chaos. But as he raised his staff, the sky split open with black lightning. The Covenant struck with a forbidden spell, Nullus Arcanum, the banishment of magic. The spell did not kill Elric, it emptied him. His vast power was siphoned into a crimson gem, stolen by the Covenant's leader, Mordain the Hollow, a twisted warlock who had once been Elric's apprentice. In a flash of smoke and ruin, Elric fell from the spire, powerless. Chapter 2. The Path of Ashes. Elric awoke in the ruins of his sanctum, broken and confused. His staff, now inert, was cold to the touch. The winds of magic no longer answered him. His first instinct was to reach out, to cast healing light, mystic sight, arcane recall. Nothing came. He was human. He wandered the 10 kingdoms, hiding his identity. He was mocked by those he once saved, hunted by those who feared his return. The humble life was hard, filled with hunger, illness, and heartbreak. But through it all, Elric never gave up. He tended wounds with herbs, he protected travelers with steel and wit, and slowly, he remembered what it meant to be strong without magic. Chapter 3. Embers in the Dust Years Past. When he heard word that Kaelin, his former apprentice, was taken by the Black Flame cultists, he did not hesitate. Powerless though he was, he journeyed to the burning wastes of Var-Shar alone. He fought with sword, mind, and memory. He used no magic, but freed her with courage and cunning. Kaelin wept to see him again. "You still teach," she said, "just by surviving." Together, they uncovered an ancient sigil hidden beneath the sands, a piece of the weave once broken by the first Magilords. As he touched it, something stirred in his soul, a flicker. Chapter 4. Reign of the Hollow. While Elric sought meaning in silence, Mordain had ascended. Once a scholar of healing magic, Mordain had turned to entropy and decay. He founded the Covenant of the Black Flame, a cabal of wizards who believed magic should be ruled, not served. The world called them evil. Mordain called them correct. He forged the hollow throne from the skull of a long-dead god and declared himself Archmage Eternal. His first act was to unbind the Starlit Accord, severing the pact between mortals and the Celestial Guardians. Chaos returned. Kaelin led a resistance, but without Elric's strength, they faltered. In the mountains of Eresh, Elric meditated beside a dead fire, feeling the old grief gnaw his soul. Then he heard a voice, a whisper in the wind, his own name, spoken not as a command, but a calling. He lit the fire with flint and breath. No magic, but the flame danced blue. Chapter 5. Fire Rekindled. Elric emerged from the vault of Arcais not reborn, but awakened. His body still ached from the strain of living without magic, but his eyes shimmered faintly with an ember of the weave, the first spark of reconnection. He had learned that magic without understanding is chaos, and understanding without humility is ruin. But knowledge was not enough. To reclaim his full connection to the arcane, he would need to traverse the 9 crucibles of reforging, trials set by the ancient Magilords of old. Each crucible held a fragment of forgotten magic, a shard of the original weave, long sealed away in realms both physical and metaphysical. His first destination was the ruins of Sarath Mor, a sunken city lost beneath the sands of the Ilarian dunes. Buried within was the helix of echoed flame, a relic said to respond only to the purest fire of intention. Elric entered the ruins alone, passing illusions of old friends who had turned away, failures that still haunted him. He confronted a vision of Kaelin dying because of his own inaction, but he shattered the illusion by embracing it. "I cannot undo the past," he whispered, "but I will forge the future." The helix ignited with blue fire, winding into his palm and embedding a glowing sigil over his heart. His connection to the weave deepened. Meanwhile, Kaelin, bold, determined, and fiercely loyal, had begun her own journey. Sent to the coastal city of Lunareth to investigate reports of corrupted tides, she uncovered a hidden sect known as the Drowned Eye, a cult that siphoned elemental magic through sea spirits bound in chains of moonlight. Kaelin nearly lost control of her power during the confrontation. She called for Elric through a whisper spell, only for his response to come not in words, but in feeling, a calm, grounding sensation that steadied her mind. She subdued the cult and freed the sea spirits, gaining the favor of Nemiriel, an ancient water elemental who marked Kaelin as a warden of the tide. In his journal, Elric wrote, "She does not need me anymore, and that is the greatest testament to her strength and my faith in her." Chapter 7. The Grimoire of Shattered Paths. As Elric continued to reclaim his power, he sought out a forbidden tome, the the Grimoire of Shattered Paths, a book bound in cursed vellum, sealed within the temple ruins of Kirazar. It was said to reveal truths about the founding of the Covenant of Black Flame. The grimoire showed visions of 13 wizards, all once noble, who in the Age of Silence sought to bind the chaos of wild magic, of their descent into madness as they fed on the energies they swore to regulate, of a prophecy that one of their own would rise and defy the darkness from within. That wizard was Orlin, later known as Mordain. He had once tried to stop the others, but when they cast him out for treason, the seeds of hatred grew in his heart. The Covenant, it turned out, was a survival mechanism gone wrong. It had been founded to protect the world from magical entropy, but its creators had become addicts of control, addicted to the very darkness they wished to seal. Aelric copied the names from the grimoire and whispered them to the stars. Each name flared briefly in the sky, then faded. One by one, he would bring them into the light. Chapter 8. The Storm of Burning Truth. Armed with the Helix and guided by the grimoire's secrets, Elric prepared to storm the citadel of Black Flame, but he did not go alone. Kaelin returned, older and more powerful, her staff marked with tide runes. Alongside her came a fellowship of reborn heroes, the sword mage Therian Duskhand, the Sylvan scholar Mirael of the Verdant Grove, and Orin Brightshard, a dwarven forge mage who reforged Elric's shattered staff with mithril drawn from the heart of a star. The storm they summoned shook the sky. The battle was not simply one of power, but of truths spoken aloud, of wounds acknowledged and guilt transformed. As Elric dueled Mordain once more, he did so with both fury and sorrow. In the end, he did not destroy Mordain. He imprisoned him in the Mirror of Memories, cursed to relive every innocent life his choices had altered. Epilogue. Fire given, not taken. The world began to heal. Kaelin became Archmage of the Rewoven Circle, dedicated to guiding new wielders of magic with compassion and strength. Elric? He wandered still, his magic whole, but his purpose changed. In remote villages, people spoke of a traveler who fixed broken wells, healed broken hearts, and spoke to the stars. He left behind no monuments, only stories, but in the hearts of all who knew him, he burned eternal, and the fire was never his to keep. It was always meant to be shared. I hope you enjoyed that amazing story about the great wizard and has struggled to gain his mystic powers back. However, we do learn of his ability to be a great teacher and be a good person, even though so much power flow through his veins. Please stick around and enjoy this next story about a samurai, the legend of Hoshikage Kenshiro. Chapter 1. The Boy with the Shadow Star. In a small mountain village nestled between the dense forests of Kai Province, a boy was born under the shimmering light of a rare celestial event. The villagers named him Hoshikage, meaning shadow of the star, for a comet streaked across the sky that night, trailing black fire. His family, of modest farmers, believed the omen to be a blessing and a burden. By the age of 6, Hoshikage Kenshiro had already shown signs of prodigious strength and a keen mind. He practiced with wooden sticks in the fields, imitating the swordsmanship he saw when traveling samurai passed through the village. His father, though no warrior, taught him discipline and humility. At age 10, Kenshiro was taken under the wing of a retired ronin named Takayama Goro, who had once served the shogunate but now lived in peaceful anonymity. Takayama Goro saw in the boy not only potential but something deeper, an indomitable will. To wield a blade, he often said, is to carry the weight of every soul it cuts. Chapter 2. Trials of Stone and Flame. Under Goro's brutal tutelage, Kenshiro trained in secret atop the mountain. Each day began before dawn, with meditation beneath a frozen waterfall, followed by sparring, calligraphy, and hours of sword drills. The years were harsh, filled with hunger, bitter cold, and the ever-present threat of wild beasts. But Kenshiro endured. By 16, his speed was like lightning, and his blade, a whisper of death. He carved his own katana from the remains of Goro's broken blade, and steel mined from the mountain's heart. It was named Kurohoshi, the Black Star. At 17, bandits ravaged his village. Kenshiro returned from training to find his home aflame and his parents slain. Rage threatened to consume him, but Goro's voice echoed in his mind. A sword born of fury will always break. He hunted the bandits one by one, not with vengeance, but justice. The final duel took place on a moonlit bridge, where he defeated the bandit chief Shiba the Red in a legendary duel still sung in folk songs. Chapter 3. The War of Crimson Rain. The shogunate descended into civil war, and Kenshiro, now a wandering ronin, was drawn into the fray. He served no lord, but fought to protect the innocent caught in the storm. His exploits, defending a besieged village with only a dozen men, dueling a daimyo's champion in a cherry blossom courtyard, saving an empress from assassins, earned him growing fame. In the Battle of Crimson Rain, so called for the blood that soaked the earth during a typhoon, Kenshiro led a militia against an invading army. Though vastly outnumbered, his strategies and swordplay turned the tide. Wielding Kurohoshi, he fought like a phantom, his black armor streaked with rain and blood. It was after this battle that people began calling him Seigi no Hoshikage, the shadow star of justice. Chapter 4. The Silent Garden. After decades of war, Kenshiro vanished. Rumors spread that he had died, become a monk, or ascended to the spirit world. In truth, he settled in a remote garden near the sea, where he taught the way of the sword to orphans and lost souls. There he met Lady Hanami, a former court healer who helped him rediscover peace. Together, they rebuilt the garden into a sanctuary for all who sought refuge from the world's cruelty. He never raised his sword again in anger, though many challenged him. None ever bested him, and most left changed, not by defeat, but by wisdom. In his old age, Kenshiro wrote the Kurohoshi Shinden, a treatise on honor, war, and balance. It became a sacred text for samurai generations after. Chapter 5. The Final Dawn. At 93, Hoshikage Kenshiro passed away beneath a plum tree in full bloom. It is said the tree had never flowered before, and has never since. Thousands came to pay respects. Peasants, warriors, nobles, even emperors. His armor and sword were sealed in the shrine at his garden, untouched to this day. Some say his spirit still walks beneath the plum blossoms, watching, waiting for a time when the world might again need the blade of the Shadow Star. Chapter 6. The Duel of Autumn Leaves. In his early 30s, Kenshiro wandered the famed dojo path, where the most skilled martial artists traveled to hone their abilities. There he encountered Master Rensho of the Scarlet Leaf School, a revered but proud swordsman who believed Kenshiro's fame to be mere myth. They met beneath a canopy of falling red leaves, agreeing to duel with wooden swords only. The battle was a flurry of movement, the clash of ideals as much as skill. Rensho used fluid, elegant arcs, while Kenshiro relied on devastating precision. After 300 strikes, Kenshiro disarmed Rensho with a single feint. Instead of humiliation, Rensho bowed. "You fight as if every strike is a question for the gods," Kenshiro replied, and I listened for their answer. From that day, Rensho became his friend and ally, and his dojo pledged to train under Kenshiro's philosophy. Chapter 7. The Path of Wind and Shadow. Kenshiro once journeyed through the Shinano forests, where a silent assassin guild, the Kagemura, plagued the region. They sought to test themselves against the legendary warrior. For weeks, he was pursued by unseen enemies. Traps, poisons, arrows from the dark. None succeeded. One night, he found their leader, a woman named Yoruha, waiting beneath the moonlight. Instead of fighting, they spoke. Kenshiro offered her a challenge, to defeat him in battle without hatred. They fought through dawn, but Yoruha faltered when her anger overtook her focus. "Hate is loud," Kenshiro whispered, lowering his blade. "But the wind is silent, and it breaks mountains." Yoruha disbanded the guild, taking Kenshiro's words to heart. Her assassins became protectors of the region's hidden roads, and Kenshiro's legend grew even among those who once lived in the shadows. Chapter 8. The Emperor's Summons. In his late 50s, Kenshiro was summoned to the imperial palace during a time of great upheaval. A coup threatened to overthrow the rightful heir, and the court was paralyzed with fear. Kenshiro arrived unannounced, walking past guards who bowed without knowing why. In a single night, he uncovered the plot, unmasked the conspirators, and challenged the rebel general Masanori to a duel in the Emperor's Hall. The duel was silent, save for the ring of steel and the whisper of rose. Masanori, though mighty, was defeated in a single stroke. The Emperor offered Kenshiro a title, a land, a throne, but he declined. A sword's place, he said, is not beside power, but before injustice. He returned to the silent garden, leaving behind stunned courtiers and great dynasty. Chapter 9: The Disciples of the Garden. Kenshiro trained many students, but 3 became his legacy. Chikuma, the swift wind, was a girl orphaned by war who moved with such grace that her blade was said to vanish mid-air. Daiji, the mountain sun, was a quiet, broad-shouldered youth who combined Kenshiro's philosophy with raw, immovable strength. Yasuhira, a former noble turned wanderer, used wit and precision, often disarming enemies with a single word or glance. Each student learned not just combat, but the teachings of the Kurohoshi Shinden, which emphasized restraint, understanding, and compassion. After Kenshiro's passing, they spread his teachings across the land, forming the triad of the Black Star, protectors of peace and memory. Chapter 10: Secrets of the Kurohoshi Shinden. The Kurohoshi Shinden was more than a treatise. It was a map of inner awakening. Hidden in its brushstrokes were poems, metaphors, and riddles pointing toward ancient spiritual truths. Some believed it was written in layers, and only those with true clarity of mind could understand its full message. The final passage read, "The sword is not the end, but the echo of the soul's balance. Still the storm within, and you shall never draw in vain." Scholars, monks, and samurai would spend years studying its deeper meanings. It is said that one who truly understands the Kurohoshi Shinden will never need to draw a blade again. Chapter 11: The Heart Beneath the Armor. Though a warrior, Kenshiro was also a husband and father. He and Lady Hanami had a son named Reikan, who inherited his mother's compassion and his father's spirit. Kenshiro rarely spoke to his family in public, choosing to protect them from the dangers his name attracted. But within the garden, he was gentle, often seen carrying Reikan on his shoulders, laughing among plum blossoms. Reikan grew up to be a healer, not a warrior, but his knowledge of the sword was unmatched. In time, he became the steward of the silent garden and guardian of his father's legacy. It was Reikan who planted the plum tree beneath which Kenshiro would one day rest, believing it would bloom only when the world was at peace. Thus lived and died Hoshikage Kenshiro, the most beloved and respected samurai the world has ever known, not because he was the strongest, but because he made strength serve mercy and honor rise above fear.